All right, go ahead, Miss Solomon. Tell me what's going on.
Yes, the reason for this complaint is because Tiffany Jones stole my hair extensions. I first contacted Tiffany on September 19th for a hair appointment that was scheduled for September 22nd. On the date of my appointment, when I arrived, I provided to Tiffany a total of three full extensions of hair. And what she did during the installation of my extensions is she swapped out that high quality hair for low quality hair. And I noticed a difference in the quality of the hair immediately after my appointment. I brought it up to her, mentioning that the style did not look like what I asked for. And she said, well, it must be something else. And then the next day, I had a consultation with the vendor who I normally go to purchase my hair extensions from. We both confirmed that the hair that was installed in my head did not match what the same type of quality that I normally get with the extensions that I purchased from them. And then the next following days, I continued to notice a lack in quality. So then I removed the hair extensions that was installed by Tiffany and confirmed by weight that the extensions that were installed in my head were not the ones that I provided to her, because the weight of all the extensions of the high quality extensions that I normally purchase are a certain weight. The weight did not match. Then I also confirmed additionally by sight as far as the density in the hair, which did not match, as well as the curl pattern of the hair at its natural state. And that's how I concluded that the hair extensions that she installed were not the hair extensions that I provided to her. Additionally, following the appointment that I had with Tiffany, she sent me an harassing text message accusing me of watching her the whole time when she did my hair, which was not true, because the way her shop is positioned, it does not allow for the person getting their hair done to even see what's going on behind them. So it conceals any activity that she's doing while she's styling someone's hair. Okay. And then who I have with me is my mother, who is also my witness and also was the person who helped me remove the extensions of the low quality hair that Tiffany installed. And okay. I did provide a packet of the evidence to the clerk.
When did you send that packet to the clerk?
I believe either last week or the week before last.
Do you have? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do still have it.
Okay.
I'm looking for it right now.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mom. Did you raise your hand when we?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please state your name.
My name is Brenda.
Okay. So tell me what you know about this situation, Miss Brenda Solomon.
Well, Your Honor, she's my daughter, and she spends a lot of money on her hair because she's in the media business. So when she came home from getting her hair done that day, she was very unhappy, and she kept looking at her hair. And so the color that she had originally asked for was not the color that matched what she had originally asked the hairdresser for. So when she came home, she did her normal routine of styling her hair, because she had an appointment the next day to go to the Porsche Center. And so when she took her hair down, her hair was dried out. It was just not the regular quality that she uses. And so she and I went to the event. We came back home. She was still complaining about her hair because her hair was brittle. And like the front of her hair was the quality that she bought, but the back of the hair was not. And so she told me, she was like, well, Mom, something is wrong. She said, this is not my hair. So we started to take the hair out. And so when we started to take the hair out, she started to cry. And so she said, this is not my hair. This woman got over on me. So then she started to explain to me that she was turned in a certain angle where she could not see, and that the woman had got an accomplice to come into the shop to watch while she was putting in different hair. So when we took out the hair, you can clearly see that it did not match her quality. My daughter had spent a lot of money on extensions, and that wasn't the same hair. And I know this because she's purchased some of that hair for me as well when we go to different events in New York. Okay. So the hair was switched. And I was alarmed because she received that text message from the hairstylist saying something about you were trying to cheat me or something to that effect, which was totally uncalled for.
Okay. Let me ask you. So Miss Solomon, LaShawn, do you have a receipt where you purchased the hair?
Sure.
Okay. And did you provide that to that as evidence?
Yes. And the actual date that I sent it on was November 6th at 12:54 p.m.
Oh, okay. That's why I can't find it.
So
okay.
I need to send it to a different email address?
Yes, please. I just sent it to your chat. Can you forward it to that email address? That was Ms. Hector's personal email, so that's why I can't find it.
Okay. And also, Mom, I know that you said that you these are some common occurrences, but at this particular date of this alleged, were you at the hairdresser?
No, sir, I did not go with her.
Okay. And has there been any other subsequent conversations or interaction with Miss Tiffany Jones?
No.
All right. What I want to do, Miss Solomon, I'm going to come back to you. Okay. Once I receive that evidence. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Pull it up.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Judge, I am in DeKalb County, and I became ill several years ago and fell behind on mortgage payments. And during that time, I was seeking some of the methods that might be able to help me with mortgage relief. I took a class. I went to a class that I was invited to by a colleague of mine, but the people who were presenting were all strangers to me. There was someone that was on the phone named Mark Manning who was doing some of the telephonic information, and we did some classes even after that, and the things that he gave me to do nothing worked. I had recently filed Chapter 13 in order to avoid a foreclosure threat, and everything that he was attempting to do to help me failed. So he ended up putting me in contact with someone that he said was extraordinary in this particular arena. His name was Danny Boykins. And he said that Mr. Boykins was in Florida and he'd been helping so many people so many times, so much so that he was being now pursued by police and put in jail for helping so many people and putting liens against attorneys. And he was just that good. So he made it sound like he was kind of a political prisoner, but he was currently in jail. He put me on a three-way call with him. We talked maybe just 5 minutes, and he said that he could help me with my situation and that he would be out in a few days. We were supposed to talk again later that day. That didn't happen. I didn't hear back from him until he texted me maybe a month later and said that he was out and that he wanted to come on up to Georgia. He had family up here, and he had also heard from Mr. Manning that I was a medical doctor and that I helped people reverse stage 4 cancer, but that a caregiver had to come with them. So he then introduced me to a friend of his that he said was his best friend with stage 4 cancer. He was going to be the caregiver. We talked on the phone, and then he
hold on. Who's he? We got people say people's names.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Okay, so Mr. Boykins spoke with me by phone, told me that he had a best friend that had stage 4 cancer that wanted to come up and have care in my property and in my home. I had 2 houses that were side by side. The second house is for the cancer patients to come with their caregiver, and then in the house next door, we've renovated the lower level so that I can provide care and consultations to teach people how to get themselves cancer-free naturally. So Mr. Boykins put me on a phone with his best friend, Tony, as a 3-way for us to do the introduction. And after that conversation, Mr. Boykins said that he was going to be coming up to Georgia 2 or 3 days before Tony in order for him to just get out of Florida because he didn't want there to be a lag time with him staying there and somebody else come and put him in jail for frivolous reasons. I saw nothing wrong with that, told him, come on, you just pay your utilities until Tony comes, we'll go from there. Mr. Boykins also asked me if I would be willing to detox him and do a kind of barter so that the mortgage business that he was helping me with, we'd be able to barter off some of the time that he spent in prison to get him off of some of the jail foods and the medications that he took. I said, fine, that's wonderful. So he came up, and 2 to 3 days later, no patient. A couple of days after that, still no patient. And every time that I asked, where is this patient, and attempted to move forward to, let's get the utilities paid, why don't you just sign a lease for yourself? But let's also start working on my paperwork. He was very evasive. Originally, he started making, I guess what you would call passes at me. And because I'm a female in the medical profession, I've had that happen before. I was always able to diffuse it. So his conversation would maybe go to, okay, he's got 10 babies, mamas, literally got this during the history. And he wants to have more kids to, maybe I should have some of his kids. And I'd be like, no, we're not going to do that. But let's get back to the work. So I was always able to redirect it back. As time went on, his inappropriate statements became a little bit more frequent. And the first time that he actually touched me inappropriately, put his hands on me, was September 3rd when we had an office appointment, the first appointment in my office for me to start detoxing him. At the same time, I had been asking repeatedly about the mortgage process that he would do, and he was still vague and evasive and refused to give me the information, stating that it was private, it was personal, intellectual property. He didn't want anyone to steal it, and that I wouldn't understand it even if he did tell me what it was, so he didn't want to go into it.
Let me ask you a question. I don't mean to cut you off, Ms. Dr. Goodman. Kind of give me a little bit about your background. You said you're a medical doctor?
Yes.
Okay, tell me a little bit. Go ahead.
I am an OBGYN by training, undergraduate school at Cornell University, medical school, University of Medicine and Dentistry in New Jersey. My residency was done in the South Bronx at Bronx Lebanon Hospital. in obstetrics and gynecology. I also trained with midwives so that I could learn how to do midwifery, and that was my introduction into holistic care. I've gone to Ghana. I went to Bello University for 2 months for training there so that I could learn more of the clinician. How do you use your diet and do the things that are natural to help people reverse it? And I've also gone through naturopathic school in order to get the title of certified health and lifestyle practitioner, which is a CNH.
Now, the Mr. Boykins, when he came up, he was living with you in the home. Is that correct?
No, sir. I have the two homes that are side by side.
Okay.
There's a primary home that is a split level that we've renovated the lower level into an office. And then there's the home that is next door that is a ranch style home, a 3-bedroom, where the patients will come and stay with their caregiver. Mr. Boykins was staying in the secondary home.
The patients, the caregiver, Is Mr. Boykins still living at that address?
No, he's not. I had to go through dispossessory and eviction and get a restraining order, a TPO, because of his physical and sexual attacks and some of the verbal attacks as well. And by y'all's grace, we just got on, I think it was Friday, we got the writ of possession revised, and the marshals should be coming and making an appointment within the next day or so.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about the inappropriate touching. This is what you're basing this matter on. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. So on September 3rd, that was the first time that we actually had an appointment in my office. But during the time before that, as I said, there was here and there an inappropriate statement that I would answer and refuse and just cordially moved on to the next thing. September 3rd, when we did the first appointment, I was speaking with him about how he needed to move out of the home because I don't have a lease, he's not paying utilities, we don't have a patient, and he needs to move on. We had this conversation, and at the end of it, he said, okay, well, let's start over again. Let's see if we can do this by being friends, and he asked for a hug. I don't like to hug patients, but sometimes it gets a little awkward when you say, yeah, I want to touch you. So I thought one hug, no problem. But when he hugged me, he held me too long and pressing me into him inappropriately. So I ended up grabbing what part of his body I could get and just pushing him off and saying, okay, no more hugs for you. And he went on out the door. The next time that I saw him in the office appointment was 2 days later, September 5th. And when he asked for a hug, of course, I refused that. And at the exit, when it was time for him to go after the appointment was over, I was getting ready to close the door behind him. He stopped just over the threshold and took a step back in towards the threshold while I'm holding the doorknob and leaned at me and said, give me some sugar. I jumped back, startled again, because to be asked for a kiss at that point was just something that I never would have expected. And I shook my head no and waved him out the door, closed the door, locked it. The next day, when I had an opportunity to talk to him about it, I spoke with him and told him, because again, we're still in the same, in the building next door, talking about what do we need to do for the mortgage paperwork. I let him know this is not that kind of relationship. It's not going to be. And why would you even ask me about giving you some sugar? And so I was just joking. I said, well, let's not joke like that anymore. We're going to handle this business and we're going to be done with that, but no more hugs for you, no more touching, nothing. The next time that there was inappropriate contact was September 19th, when we were sitting at the house next door. He was on the computer and we were working on a contract that was supposed to be the documents for mortgage relief and discharge of the mortgage. He was sitting facing his computer. I was sitting facing towards him. So if this is him at the computer, I'm facing at a 90-degree angle, sitting in a chair next to him. We're going over the contract to read, to revise what needs to be changed to make it mutually protective. Because one of the things that he was supposed to do is to be able to place the home in a trust while he did whatever remedies that he did. So as we were reading out loud and saying, these are the things that I want it changed, he turned to me with his right hand. My left hand was across my lap holding paperwork. He grabbed just above my wrist with his right hand and squeezed. And then he let go. And then he turned back towards the camera. And when I asked him, why did he do that? He said, these new reading glasses I got, I just wanted to see if your arm was really as big as the way that it looks in my glasses. I didn't say anything. I said, can we get back to the document? So we start reading the document again, and then he turns back.
Let's go ahead. You actually, it seems here is it September 25th also? Was there an incident that happened on September 25th? Because I'm sitting looking here at the police report.
September 25th was when I called in.
Okay. And so all these incidents happened. Was there any incident that happened on September 25th?
Not that I can recall, sir.
Okay.
Everything that I'm telling you now happened on the 19th, and I reported it on the 20th or the 25th.
Okay.
So in that same sitting, which is on the 19th, he then grabbed my arm and squeezed a second time, but went higher up towards the elbow, and then grabbed above the elbow and squeezed. And the last time that he grabbed behind my arm and grabbed my breast at the same time and squeezed. At that point, I grabbed his arms and pushed him off of me, jumped up from the chair and said, don't touch me. And I stood on the other side of the room about 6 feet away from him and told him, I don't like this. and I don't want you touching me anymore. I already told you no more hugs. But during that time, he had been saying he wants me to be his lady, and then he can do these things as my man instead of as a client. He invited me to come over and spend more time with him, which I refused. I wrote these things down. He also told me to stop asking questions and let him do his process. That I have to get his contracts signed and notarized before he'll engage. But
okay, let's kind of focus on the incident at hand, the incidents, because obviously, yeah, we're talking about here provoking and inappropriate touching, not about contracts. Could be some importance, but it's not related to this situation here. Okay.
Yes, sir. I apologize. That was before.
No, you're okay. Okay. You're okay. Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell me?
Yes, because he made mention of how we needed to be closer, spend more time together. I declined. He apologized for his past behavior, said he missed the touch of a woman, wanted me to hug him and melt into him, quote unquote. He also said that during the first appointment that we were together, that he had something wrong with his penis and he still wanted me to check it. He wanted to know when I'd be able to check it, and kept walking past me because now I was standing 6 feet away from him. And he would get up, walk to the refrigerator to get something, and come back by standing inappropriately too close, so that I had to push him away at least 4 different times over the next 1 to 2 hours while we were doing the contract. So each time that he came near, I was pushing him with an open hand at first, and then that was the first 2 times. And then the second time I started pushing him with the back of my hand, telling him, don't touch me. I do not want to hug you. I don't want you to touch me. We're not doing any of those things. That ended basically that particular session. The next day, which was the 20th, we were on our way to get the contracts signed. He became verbally aggressive because the kindness or the physical I wouldn't allow any of those. As I declined those, he became more and more verbally abusive and started yelling at me. So in my car, he became threatening and started threatening that I would lose my house, and got louder and louder. And I honestly, sir, do not recall how I got back home from there because I was so terrified. And he said I had to sign the documents that he gave me. Otherwise, I was going to lose my home. I just put my first name and UD next to that. And then I cannot recall how we got back home. As soon as I got home, I sent rescissions on the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd, letting him know we're done with everything. You need to move out. And that was when I started calling the police to alert them also to these things that had happened. And I think that is the crux of everything that I had to share with you. The TPO was filed, and you have a copy of that. September 27th, I believe, is when Judge Scott approved it. And then he breached that 2 times, October 10th and then October 12th after that. So,
okay, what happened when he breached? So was another incident report taken?
Yes, on October 10th, you should have another incident report. There should be a total of, I think, 7 or 8 police reports that you have in the evidence that I submitted to you. On one of them, he was doing intimidating things like driving up behind me in my driveway, because remember, the houses are side by side, and he could have just driven straight into his. He did not. He followed me up the driveway, and I thought he was going to try and pin me into the garage, but he didn't. He then veered off, drove across the grass, and went into the yard next door. I immediately called the police after I thought he was going to be coming after me, and the police took that report. The next one after that was filing that I don't.
Sorry, let me just, because we're only dealing with one of them. Okay, that's the situation. I do appreciate the additional information.
Yes.
I do find there's sufficient probable cause in this to issue a warrant against Mr. Boykin.
Thank you.
First of all, Mr. Boykin has no response. There's no one here on behalf of Mr. Boykin. Mr. Boykin was sent the notice and he failed to respond to it and failed to show up here today. And what we'll do, we'll issue the warrant against Mr. Boykin. But we do need for you to come down to the clerk's office and actually sign it. Madam, what day is that?
Are you asking me, sir?
No, Madam Clerk.
I'm here. You said what day is what?
That she wants, and if she did, the warrant's going to be issued. I mean, she needs to sign it. So,
okay. You asked me what day she can come down to sign?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
It just depends on how long you want to give her. The office is nobody. You know, of course, Thanksgiving starts.
Right. That's what I want to know. That's what. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to
So,
tomorrow.
Between tomorrow and Wednesday, or either.
Okay. She said she can come tomorrow. Ms. McLaws and Mr.
So between 8:30 and 5.
Judge, we're ready. Unfortunately.
We're ready, Your Honor.
Maybe I'm confused. This case was also heard with the TPO, correct?
Your Honor,
Yes,
there was a stalking petition that my client had filed. Judge Davis had indicated that she wasn't hearing the battery piece. She was only hearing the stalking petition. She did issue an order denying that. However, in that order, she cautioned Mr. Byrne that any further additional conduct, my client could refile.
Yeah, Judge, I'll send you the order. I have a copy of the order. The answer
I have it right here. I'm sitting here looking at it.
Mr. Spiesman,
Miss
not
McLaws,
interrupting.
Miss McLaws, I have it was done on September 27, 2023. And it says petitions failure to provide preponderance of evidence. The allegations contain says the court heard evidence from the parties who are neighbors of a battery and assault, but insufficient evidence as pled presented a pattern of conduct of stalking at this time to warrant extension of ex parte order. Any future allegations of acts of unwanted conduct may be grounds for petition refiling and or criminal charges. Nothing in this order shall preclude the pursuit of available remedies in criminal and or civil court forms for the current allegations. And that's what read in there. And both parties were represented by counsel. And of course, no attorney's fees. And that was so ordered on November 10th, 2023. It was actually,
that's accurate, Judge. In this particular incident was investigated by DeKalb County Police. They actually interviewed all parties.
Your Honor,
we're gonna have a time. We're gonna have a time to have that at the hearing. So, but right now, I just want to make sure I understand where it was at. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. It was just the stalking petition that Judge Davis heard. She didn't hear or adjudicate the issues we're here on. In fact, she specifically stated because it wasn't in front of her, she was not adjudicating it.
Now, the initial TPO, initial TPO, what was the findings in that initial TPO?
An ex parte order entered on the stalking petition, Your Honor.
Okay, it only addressed stalking only?
It only addressed stalking, Your Honor. That is correct.
Well, Judge, it was stalking based on a course of conduct, including this alleged battery. And so all the parties filed basically applications against one another. So that's what's in front of you now is cross complaints for a battery that's since been investigated by DeKalb County and no arrests were made. So that's
no investigation other than police officers came out and took police reports. There was no investigation done by anyone, Your Honor, and nobody testified.
Okay, Ms. McLaw, but listen, I'm gonna come back to you guys. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Next case is gonna be
Judge.
yes.
All right. So I don't have an update yet, unfortunately, for Miss Solomon. I'm still refreshing, checking. I'll contact the night clerks to try to get if they see something come in. Miss Hector is off right now, off duty, so she does not have her computer with her to send an email. But for the other case with Mr. Bryant, and I did find the other application, and I will send notification to the staff to let everybody know that this application is dismissed, so it won't be forwarded to a judge or to move forward. And then the case tonight is going to be dismissed as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I do have it in front of me right now.
Okay, both parties, you're excused. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. You've already been previously sworn in, so tell me what's going on.
So on August 23rd, I was driving east with my wife on La Vista Road, and the car behind me sort of swung around me in the oncoming traffic lane, tried to cut me off and actually made contact with my car, sort of initiated an accident. This is Mr. Kashim Cobb's car. We called the police when that happened. And after the accident, he came out of his car and came to my driver's side window. And I sent the videos last week to the court. So the first video is the accident. Second video is the first set of threats that he issued. He said he would violate me, that he's been in jail. He doesn't care about police, doesn't care about courts, doesn't care about judges, doesn't care about jail, that he would take me out of my car and violate me in front of my girl, as he called my wife. That was the first time. Second time he came back to my car, I had rolled my window up a bit so that he wouldn't get further escalated and agitated. Second time he came back, you can't hear the audio as well because, again, my window is up. But in the video, you see him come to the car and saying something. What he said to me and my wife is, if I had something in my car, I would have pulled it out and used it on both y'all by now. It's a very clear threat. We understood it as a threat, and we told the police who came on the scene later that it was a threat for, you know.
Now, did you show the officers these videos?
We didn't have the ability because I didn't have a wire for the camera in the car. The camera is attached to my car, and if I turn my car off without a wire to connect it to a computer, it won't stay on. So I didn't have the ability to show the videos to the officers, but I did send a video to the court last week. And it's 5 videos, they're no more than 4 minutes total. But the officer took a statement from me and my wife, and it issued him a ticket for the accident as well. So he was charged with the accident. So the second time, like I said, he came, he said, you know, if I had some in my car, I would have used it against y'all. Third time he came to the car, and again, my window was up, so you can't hear the audio, but you can see him come to the car, he's saying something, and then you can hear at the very end of the video, he says, so what you gonna do about that? What he said is, I will pull, and I don't want to use the words he used because I don't curse in my normal life. I will pull your B out of the car by her hair, beat her A in the street in front of your BA. So across 3 different times he came to my car, he threatened me, he threatened both of us, and he threatened specifically my wife. Again, we gave a statement to the police officer. They included a lot of the statements in the actual incident report, but the videos, again, show how agitated he was. And the first set of threats that he issued are very audible, very clear in the audio of the second video. There's a final video. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask a question. Did the officer interview the Mr. Cobb also? They
did, yes. They interviewed him about the traffic accident and about sort of what me and my wife told them about the threats. There's something in the report, in the incident report, about what he said in that regard. My wife is here if you want to hear from her as well.
Perjury.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and tell me what you witnessed and what happened today.
So we were making a turn. This car seemed to come from behind us and was apparently trying to get in front of us and hit us. And we pulled over, they pulled over, this guy got out of that car, came over to our car, was very aggressive and started saying things like, okay, I'm sorry, we're having a problem. Okay. I don't know how much you heard of what I was saying before. I was saying,
no, you just got to the point where he came to the vehicle.
Okay. Yeah, he came over to our car and he started saying, I should do something to you. If I had something in my car right now, I would do something to you. And he made a number of other threatening comments to us. And then at another point, when we were waiting for the police, he came back over and started saying similar things to us again.
Okay. And all this was captured on videos?
Yes.
Okay. And like Miss Solomon, we are having a hard time with that wasn't in the evidence. Madam Clerk, could you? Okay, she's looking now. She's looking now for the videos.
Yeah, I'm looking now for position 5. I just sent you what I got from Miss Solomon.
Okay, great. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna put you on hold number 5, Mr. Rucker, until I'll get the videos. Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, let me get back with Miss Solomon. All right, Miss Solomon, I do have the information that you provided, and I'm reviewing the evidence now. I do see the extensions, and with the particular hair color and style that you had initially purchased, but I do also see the pictures taken regarding the ones that were installed. And it looks like the September 23rd is when you took those pictures. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just double checking the dates.
How did you get to this particular stylist?
I found her on Style Seat, the application.
Because it seems like this is your first interaction. Is this correct?
Yes, it is.
All right, after review of the evidence, Ms. Solomon, I reviewed the pictures and the information that you provided. The court will issue a warrant. And in that warrant, I believe your warrant was for theft by conversion. Find a suspicion of probable cause to issue a warrant in this matter, along with your testimony, along with the evidence that has been presented. And we'll set a bond on that also. What day are you available to come down and sign this warrant?
Well, I thought I signed it already.
No, ma'am. This is
Judge, she might have. To be honest with you, yeah, she may have, because they kind of set some new practices in the office. Yeah, it's a little different, but they kind of have them come sign. So I was going to check, but if you know that you've already come down to sign, that's fine. We'll just forward it on.
I went to the Camp Circle location, and
that's fine. Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah, it looks like she's already signed, Judge. So we'll discuss it further, and I'll let you know after court. Okay.
All right, great deal. Thank you, Ms. Solomon. You're free to go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Mr. Rucker, I'm actually listening to the videos right now. Okay.
Okay.
Listen to and review them. Awesome. See them. It has here, he's driving a Mercedes-Benz convertible. And basically, it shows in the videos that he's getting out of the vehicle. He's got a vehicle the first time and getting out of the vehicle the second time. After review of the evidence, Mr. Rucker, I find it sufficient probable cause. That evidence being the actual the videos of him getting out of the car, and does make a threat by him saying he will violate you. I did hear that. And there's some other additional matters that will push one in fear or apprehension of some type of physical harm. So there is sufficient evidence for that, and the warrant will be issued. In this matter, do you have when are you available to come down to the courthouse to sign? Did you sign the warrant? Do you know?
If this is the warrant, then I did sign it. I'm not sure if this is the actual warrant.
I'm looking right now. No, that's not the actual
That's
warrant.
not it.
But he has already come down to sign.
He has already come down?
Yes, he signed.
He's already signed? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so Mr. Rucker, there'll be a process, and of course they'll put it on the system, and at some point they'll arrest Mr. Cobbs. Okay.
Thank you.
Like this has to do with a situation. Go ahead and start.
Sure. The respondent is my half brother, and I've had problems with him for years. This particular situation that happened, just to very quickly, he came onto the property where I live, and he was dropping off my mother after taking her shopping. He pulled his car onto the front grass, not even a parking lot. He pulled directly up onto the grass in front of the house, let my mother out. I was dealing with my kids. Before I know it, all of a sudden he's coming in the side door where the carport is, from the direction where the car was parked. My car was parked. I didn't think of anything of it. He's a very difficult person, and he does weird things. I didn't think anything of it. He came back around another time because my mother apparently forgot something or needed something, so he went. But he kept coming to the side door when his car was parked out front. Again, I didn't think anything of it. He's just a weird person. We had a family meeting we have every week because we've got 5 kids to deal with. We had a family meeting. That was a holiday. The kids were out of school. And after the family meeting, I went to go take my kids shopping, and my older brother came and said, "Come look." And both the front tires of the Audi were flat. And this is not something that happened by accident, where it was slashed, like two long slashes in each tire on the sidewall. So like not something that happened by accident. I had just driven the car a couple hours before and parked it. Everything was fine. That's basically it. I had to, and then I provided, it was only after this happened that my younger sister said, "Oh, he said he was going to do that." But you have to understand this, he's like emotionally unstable. He says a lot of things. He's just a very difficult person. I don't know if my sister just never mentioned. She didn't think to mention it until after it had happened. So one of the things I provided you through email is a printout of a conversation between my sister and my older brother, where my sister mentions, "By the way, Eric has been threatening to slash the car tires." And that conversation happened a month or more before he actually went and did just that.
Do you have any pictures of the car tires?
Oh, that I don't. I don't have the picture of the car tire. I mean, I did take one when we took it to get the tire changed, but I'm sorry, I forgot to actually include that. I do have receipts. I have a receipt from the place I had to buy. I couldn't afford to replace the tires that he slashed were new tires. I couldn't afford to replace to pay for the new tires, so I bought used tires. And the place that I got the used tires from, they noted that it was a slash that could not be fixed, and it was vandalism. It did not occur to me to actually send pictures of the tire. I did, however, take pictures. If that's something that's necessary, I can find it in my phone and have that forwarded to the clerk.
You also said you submitted some rental payments, car rental payments?
Okay, so I just wanted to be very clear, because the car is my older brother's car. I was renting it from him, which is the reason why I'm here making the complaint and not my brother. So I just want to make that.
You guys have a rental agreement?
Yes, it's kind of a long story. I found myself without a car. My older brother, he has his car that he doesn't use very much, so I'm just like paying him to use the car. So the car was in my possession when my younger brother slashed the tires. I was trying to provide as much information as I can about the situation.
I think I may have a problem with this one because it's the ownership issue.
I mean, I had.
Hold on one second. All right. Okay, so I see you do have a receipt here for Walmart where there were 4 tires purchased, correct?
Yes, they were purchased in June, brand new tires.
And they have John Philippe Francois. Is that your brother?
That's my older brother. Yes.
Okay. At this time, I don't feel there's sufficient enough probable cause because I have the issue with the ownership of the vehicle. There's no rental agreement.
But I guess I'm confused at why it matters who owns the car. He slashed the tires, and I had to pay for them to be replaced.
It matters who owns the car because the ownership is the quintessential part of this accusation. So I understand what you're saying. You went and paid for them, but right now the idea is that the criminal trespass occurred because it was damage to those tires that were owned by your brother, the vehicle that was owned by your brother. Now he probably would more right to come in and say he owned the vehicle and what have you, and that he's the one taking it out. But right now, I don't. Based upon the information you provided, there is insufficient probable cause to issue a warrant, and it's strictly based upon the idea that you're not the owner of the vehicle.
So my older brother would have to file the.
I'm not telling you what, but I'm just saying that's why I'm basing my information on. Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right, Ms. Lynn, this is your burden, and you're the complaint. So go ahead and tell me what's going on.
Good night. I filed a warrant. I pulled a warrant for Mr. Williams because he slashed my truck tires, 2 of them on the driver's side. I'm gonna go back to the night of the event. We have a mutual friend. I went there first. They was selling food and he showed up. The mutual friend said to him, hey, the food is done and you didn't tell me that you was coming. And he was still standing there with his son and his daughter. He stayed there for a little bit. And then after that, on his way out, his daughter, because we have a son together, me and Mr. Williams have a son together. I used to live with him. I moved out. His daughter saw me and she ran over to me to give me a hug while they were leaving. And he kept on calling her back, but she wouldn't turn back. She kept on coming to me to give me a hug. After she approached me, I gave her a hug. Shortly after that, she turned back around and went to him. They left. He sent me a text message saying, don't put your mouth on my child because excuse my language, I don't know whose dick you're sucking. And I waited for a while before I responded to the message. And pretty much I told him, hey, I did not put my mouth on your child. She gave me a hug. I gave her a hug. And that was that. And I told him he needs to grow up. He left. He kept on texting me back. We kept on exchanging, conversation. I sent over that in email. And then the reason why I left from his house was because I found out that he was sleeping with guys. So I moved out and we had a big issue with that.
Hold on, let's focus on this. That's not germane to what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yes, sir. So he kept on exchanging messages with me. Then when he was leaving out, I said to the owner of the building, I said, hey, is there a way that I could view my truck from the inside to make sure my truck is fine? The guy said, yeah, but you don't need to worry about your vehicle. It's fine. Ain't nobody going to mess with your vehicle here. And the reason why I was that alert about my vehicle is because he let the tire out my vehicle previously before, the incident. And just did you
file anything then at that time?
No, because it was just a hair that he let out. So I just let it be. So after that, he was mad about what we was texting about. And I guess he went, dropped the kids off, returned, parked his white Chevy work truck in the middle of the street, ran out, came over in the yard, stabbed my 2 tires, and ran back to the vehicle, drove off to the right. There was eyewitnesses inside the house, including the owner of the building that I spoke to. He's not here tonight because he lost his dad. So he's grieving right now. But he ran out the truck, stabbed 2 tires, ran back to the vehicle, drove to the right. I called the cops. I saw him running, but it's like everything happened so fast. I didn't think to pull my phone out to record him, you know, doing what he was doing. So I called the cop, reported it. They wasn't able to pull a warrant because they wasn't there at the time of the incident, they said. Then I said, okay, I'll go ahead and pull the warrant myself. So I went through with getting the warrant pulled for him because he stabbed my tire. So that was pretty much that. I reached out to him. I texted him. I said, you know, that was stupid of you to do that. We have eyewitnesses that saw you. It was so many people that was there. And I called his mom. I said, look, your son has been doing this and I just need you to talk to him. And she was like, why would he do that? You know, and I'd never heard back from her. She never called me back. She said she would call him and talk to him, but she never called back. So I went ahead and pulled the warrant for that reason.
Okay. All right. Okay. Did you have any pictures?
I sent it over in email, and even when I got the tires changed at the tire shop, like I don't know these people, but as soon as the person saw it, the person that changed the tire, they was like, this tire, because he tried to blame it on someone else. He was saying, oh, people is out to get me, and the person that he said supposedly slashed my tire, I called her that night. She was at home with her baby and her husband in her house, and I told her that he's out here trying to frame her for slashing my tire.
You have any other witnesses?
There's
that's present. I mean, I can only go by with who's here.
No, he's mourning his loss of his father.
Okay.
But he did write.
He did write a statement?
Yes, he did write a statement at the station. I don't know how I could get that.
I'm looking at this police report, Madam Clerk, and it doesn't seem to address this particular situation. Something else. It says something about fair. Let me see.
Yeah, it was filed with Latonia Police Department, and we had some issue with them because even when I went to court for the order of protection, the judge was saying, like, you know, the whole situation was kind of crazy how the cop didn't do what they were supposed to do. But, you know, everything takes time, and I just had to make sure I do what I had to do to protect myself because I feel fear of my life.
You said you went to court, and what happened with the TPO?
They did grant it. They gave us a year. He's not able to see me or our child that we have together.
Do you have a copy of that?
I do.
Okay. Did you provide that?
I didn't provide it because I didn't know I needed to provide that.
Can you
but
provide
it was
it to
with
the clerk?
Gwinnett County.
Okay, could you provide it to the clerk now?
Yes.
All right. All right. Mr. Williams, and is there anything else, Ms. Linton, that you had to say?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I'm just, you know, in fear for my life, and I just want him to stop doing what he's doing. That's it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Williams, you are not obligated to say anything at all. You have the constitutional right to remain silent, and it cannot be held against you. You also have a right to have an attorney represent you. Of course, that'll be your own choosing in this matter. We don't pay for attorneys in these what they call pre-arrest hearings, warrant application hearings. But yes, if your desire to tell me or talk to me, tell me what's going on or what have you, I'm listening.
All right. Good evening, Your Honor. As you can see, first I'd say I'd like this case to be dismissed on the grounds of the case information that I'm seeing here. I was at work and I present that information that I was at work at that time. And
you present that information to the clerk?
Yes, I sent that on by email.
Okay.
Looking for it now.
Okay, all right. Go ahead. All right. Keep going. Is that what you're standing on, that you weren't there?
The date that is on this warrant here is false, so I can't entertain something with wrong information. Not going to contradict myself, but if you want me to go on to what she stayed on, I can continue on that, but I would like to dismiss based on this grounds by itself.
Okay. The date on this application says 9/22/2023, and that's 10:15. Is that 10:15 a.m. or p.m., Ms. Linton?
Night, 10:15 in the night.
That's not what my information states. and I submitted my time that my boss gave me from our signing sheets.
Okay, well, I'm looking at here right here. This is the magistrate court, the County application for criminal warrant. In this case number, Juliana Linton, with an address and a complaint against Nicholas Williams. And basically it states that is that he slashed my 2 left tires. That date was 9/22/2023, and it was located. And
that's correct.
And the time frame was 10:15. And I just asked her, was it AM or PM? She indicated it was PM.
Okay. All right, that's what you have. So I couldn't gather more information based on this information that they presented. So mine, I'm not sure if the camera will show you the time that it states on here. It's for September 22 at 12 a.m. At that time, I was at work, and I submit that information.
Yeah, I'm going on what's on the warrant application. What are you going on? What are you basing that on? Is that the actual police report?
This is what I got as far as warrant application that it was mailed to me that tell me I need to be at this hearing.
Okay, let me just see what you got. So this is not a court of this is not a civil matter. So you ask for counterclaims of defamation and what have you. That's something that you have to deal with in another court appearance.
Okay. Because she did make videos with my full government name saying I slashed her tires, and she has no evidence of that because I was not in that area. And as you can see, she always gonna make excuses about witnesses not available, or she didn't think to pull her phone out, and she tell my mom, oh, the neighbors got cameras. I'm like, let she prove it, because if I was there, she's gonna show me. But she can't, because none of that is true. And speaking of me telling her not to put her child on, put her on my child.
All I'm concerned about is slashing of tires, sir. So
yes,
let's get to that part right there. And you're stating that I'm looking at. I'm going to assume this is a.
Am I allowed to speak?
No. Nope.
Okay.
Not until he's finished.
All right.
And I'll review these. These are some emails which have really nothing to do with them that Mr. Wilson provided. And I don't see on your date. It does not tell you anything about the time frame that you were there. It just got no and yes and what have you. As far as your employer.
I can always forward my pay stub that corresponds that, and I'm working by the airport, which has the most cameras you can find in the state. So there's 500 ways I can prove I was at work. And I got the subpoena a little late, so far, as far as to get with Ring Camera to provide my camera at the house, as far as their timing and my whereabouts.
Yeah, you said I also have a Ring camera, but that date has been deleted already. But
Yes,
it can't be retrieved. That's you have to retrieve that by court order. It's not up to us to do that.
I understand.
Just letting I do have your same bunch of email in Texas and between you and he going back and forth.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of the TPO?
Yes, I'm trying to retrieve it. I'm actually using my phone right now to speak to you. And I'm at work. I just text my captain to send a copy over to me because they have it here at work.
All right, Mr. Williams, anything else?
Just anything you want to speak on. Some of it is not related to it, but it was just responding to what she's trying to paint the character about me. On this warrant here, I've seen it has trespassing, and you cannot trespass on a public property. Like,
actually, the criminal trust is based upon the damage being less than $500.
Okay, but I want to put it in there that this criminal trespassing is only a tit for tat she's doing because she's in my house acting outrageously where I couldn't contain her and I had to call the cops on her. So she's just doing stuff to play games with the system. So that's just she doing that because she didn't like the fact that I had to call the cops because I couldn't control her. She's out of control and doing stuff that I know how the system is. If I try to defend myself, I'm the one still gonna get locked up. So I end up calling the cops and they tell her not to come back to my house.
Looks like here's criminal trespass. And I'm waiting for that TPO. Once I get a TPO, I'll review that information. Miss Linton. So
Yes,
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move on to the next case.
No problem.
Is the TPO with DeKalb?
It's with Gwinnett County, but I work for DeKalb County, so they have it here at work.
Okay, it's okay. I just wanted to see because I was trying to.
Yeah, she's trying to see if she can find it somewhere.
Yeah.
Gwinnett County.
Yeah, we can't get into Gwinnett County system, but
Okay, I'm gonna get it.
okay.
I got you.
All right. Brittany Edney versus Jason Byrne. It looks like all these cases are somewhat related to each other. Like cross filings. It seems like this is a like friends or people that have known each other, I'm assuming. All right, we got Miss McLaw and Mr. Spitzman, and the burden of proof in this situation is on Brittany Edney, and so Miss McLaw.
Good evening, Your Honor. To give you a little bit of background, would the court like just some brief opening?
Sure, brief.
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, these parties are neighbors, which is one of the reasons why my client didn't apply for a family violence protective order, because she wouldn't have, under the statute, they didn't have that kind of relationship. There was a stalking petition that was filed. The incident. Let me
get some understanding for a couple things, Ms. McLaw. Hold on.
Yes, sir.
There are some people that are on here that are not actually as accused or as a complainant on here. I see Rod's iPad. Rod, who are you here for?
He's here for this case, Your Honor. He's
Okay.
our witness.
Okay.
Dr. Roderick Givens.
Okay, and then Stephen West, who are you here for?
He's our witness, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. On September the 23rd, 2023, the evidence will show that Dr. Roderick Givens was hosting a little get-together at his home. My client, Brittany Edney, and her husband, Peter Wang, were there on the porch with Dr. Givens when Mr. Byrne and his fiancée, Nicole Fraser, arrived. The evidence will show, Your Honor, that Mr. Byrne addressed my client, Brittany Edney, who was sitting on a couch far away from him. In fact, furthest away from him. When my client did not respond to him, he continued to engage with my client, to the point that Mr. Byrne indicated that if my client referred to his fiancée as a bitch again, that he would strike her. My client stood up. Dr. Roderick Givens was physically in between Mr. Byrne and my client, and Dr. Givens will testify, Your Honor, that it happened very quickly, that my client never raised her hand, didn't move in any aggressive way other than to stand up because Mr. Byrne was standing over her. He then punched her in the face. And then with his other hand, he was holding a bourbon bottle. He then swung the bottle and hit her in the arm. Mr. Wang then stood up after he saw his wife be violently assaulted by Mr. Byrne. Mr. Byrne grabs a hold of my client's arm. They end up on the floor. My client is on the bottom. Mr. Byrne is on top of her, and he is choking Mr. Wang. And Dr. Givens is observing this entire situation. The evidence will show, Your Honor, that Mr. Byrne has told differing stories about this matter, so has his fiancée. And one of them is that my client raised her hand to strike Mr. Byrne, but Dr. Givens was there, said it didn't happen. Mr. Byrne, then, Your Honor, after striking my client and he's choking Mr. Wang, they break up. Other people come, they break up. What's happening? Mr. Stephen West is a member of good standing with the State Bar of Georgia. He's an attorney, Your Honor. He was there that night. While he didn't see the altercation itself, he did speak with Mr. Byrne, who made an admission that he struck my client, that he hit her. You'll hear in Mr. Byrne testified at the stalking petition. He testified he never hit my client, but you're going to
Objection, Your Honor. That's not going to be evidence. That's argument.
Yeah. So no. Do you have that? You have the stalking petition transcript?
I can double check, Your Honor. We had paid for it, and I thought it had come in, but I'd have to double check that. Yeah. But we have ordered it, Your Honor. Following this incident, Your Honor, my client did contact law enforcement. Law enforcement never came and interviewed my client that night. She contacted law enforcement first thing the next day. Law enforcement did what they often do in these situations, which is, okay, we'll take a police report and you can come and file whatever it is you need to file. And that's exactly what my client has done. It was only after my client filed for the warrant application and filed a stalking petition that Mr. Byrne then filed his. In addition to this stalking petition, or I'm sorry, the warrant application, Mr. Byrne and his fiancée filed a stalking petition.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance, whether or not an act of violence was committed, is solely specific to that evening. It has nothing to do with what they did after the fact.
Yeah, kind of stick to what we got going on that you allege in this particular application, okay?
Yes, Your Honor. That will be the evidence of this case. And at the conclusion of this matter, Your Honor, we will be asking you to issue a warrant and a bond, and that Mr. Byrne undergo psychological testing, that he be required to stay away from my client at least 500 feet, and that he undergo a bad orders intervention program.
Okay, that's not family violence. So
no, Your Honor, it's not. But I believe as a part of a bond condition, he can be required to undergo.
We're not going to do that. We don't do that unless it's family violence.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Spitzman.
Judge, I'll be much briefer. Quickly, Your Honor, this stems from an altercation that occurred back on September 23rd. Mr. Byrne and Miss Edney and Miss Fraser and Mr. Wang used to be really good friends. They traveled the world together. Evidence shows that they kind of fizzled out. The relationship just kind of stopped. There was no incident that caused them to no longer speak or something, nothing of that nature. So for about a year plus, they never saw one another. Mr. Byrne and his fiancee, Miss Fraser, were invited over to Dr. Given's home. They had no knowledge Miss Edney would be there. They appeared. Mr. Byrne brought a bottle of bourbon as a gift from Dr. Givens for the invite. They show up. There's exchange of words that occur. Miss Edney stands up. She goes to raise her hand as if to strike Miss Fraser. Mr. Byrne pushes Miss Edney away. Mr. Wang jumps in. Dr. Givens, who is in the middle, doesn't witness anything other than the fact that he's between the two of them. Everyone falls to the ground. And while Mr. Byrne is on the ground, he is being violently assaulted. Miss Edney bites him on the head. There's going to be photo evidence of that particular bite. And he is also hit while he is on the ground. You'll see evidence of that. There'll be photo evidence, and there'll be evidence of the bite. He went home. He called the police. He reported to DeKalb County Police. They showed up. They interviewed him extensively. We're going to provide you with a police report and the audio of that exchange, Judge. Miss Edney waits till the next day. She calls the police. The police interview her and Mr. Wang. There's a video of that interview. Police officer specifically notes on that video that he sees no physical injury, and he notes it in his police report of any damage or injuries to her head. The police are called again, Judge. The police interviewed Dr. Givens, Miss Edney, and Mr. Wang again. And after a thorough investigation that includes, I believe, a total of 3 police reports, 3 dash and body cams, 3 separate phone calls, interviewing of all the witnesses that you're going to hear from today, Your Honor. After all of that, they determined that they could not find out who the initial aggressor is, who's the at-part fault party, and they note that Miss Edney's delay in calling the police was also a contributing factor. Because of all that, Judge, we're going to ask that you find that no warrants be issued tonight. We're not looking for blood. We're not looking for anything. We think that the evidence is going to support, Judge, that you're either going to find that this was an incident where there was mutual combat, neither of which party participated in voluntarily, but there was a fight that broke out. And while Mr. Byrne is on the ground, he is getting bit in the head by Miss Edney. That's an assault. That's a battery. That's an unwanted touching. And so while some parties may have an immunity motion that should be argued later, what the evidence is going to show is that, Judge, you're going to be stuck with send everyone to jail or send no one to jail. And what we're proposing to this honorable court is to send no one to jail, because it has been litigated. It has been investigated, and now we're here to relitigate. So we'd ask that you just issue no warrants. This just all needs to come to an end. That's all that I have, Judge.
All right. Just give me one more second. I gotta let me get back to that Linton Williams case. I dived into this last case. Ms. Linton, I do have where there was an issue of a temporary protective order.
Yes, sir.
There wasn't, I don't see anything here. At least we don't have anything that was a permanent protective order. Temporary was issued, and that was issued, and it's supposed to be a hearing on October 5th.
No, there was a permanent one that we both showed up at court. You should have a copy too.
I don't have that. You're gonna need to send me that one, okay?
Okay, I'm gonna get it right now.
Let me go ahead and let's Ms. McLaw, just go ahead and call your first witness.
Your Honor,
Judge, I would invoke the rule of sequestration. There's a number of witnesses here that intend to testify. I think that Mr. Byrne and Ms. Fraser have to remain in because they both have pending applications. But outside of that, I think that Dr. Givens, Mr. Wang, and Mr. West all need to be excluded.
That's totally 100% correct.
Your Honor, I call Dr. Roderick Givens. And Dr. Givens, where do you reside?
2013 Riverbirds Lane, Atlanta.
Okay. And how do you know the move-ant, Brittany Edney?
Friends of ours. We moved into the neighborhood about 1.5 years ago.
And in addition to being friends, your neighbors?
Yes, but she's down the street, yes.
Okay. And how do you know Jason Byrne?
He's the immediate neighbor facing my house to the left.
All right. And where were you on September 23rd, 2023?
I was at my home that evening.
Did you have anybody over to your home that evening?
Yes, I had it was college game night, so invited some neighbors over that evening.
Okay. And who were those neighbors that actually showed up on September 23rd, 2023?
We had Miss Edney and Mr. Wang, Steve West, another neighbor who was there was a gentleman named Judd. He lives in the neighborhood, and his live-in partner, Mary, and then also Mr. Byrne and Miss Fraser.
Now, in the beginning of the evening, is it correct that Mr. Byrne and Miss Fraser were not initially at this get-together? Is that correct?
That's correct. Everyone that I mentioned was there, including Steve West, were at the premises, and later on, Mr. Byrne and Miss Fraser made it over.
Were you sitting with Ms. Edney and Mr. Wang on September 23rd, 2023?
Yes, it's my side porch. It's open air. It's got a television and a fireplace, and a wicker seating arrangement where it's a love seat, a 3-seater, and then an individual seat. And so myself and Mr. Wang were on the same 3-seater. He was immediately to my left, and then to his left in a single chair was Miss Ed.
Now, on this side porch, if someone were arriving to come over, would they have entered the side porch to your right?
That's correct.
Okay. And if they had entered to your right, Mr. Wang was immediately to your left and Ms. Edney was further back to your left. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. When Mr. Byrne and Ms. Fraser arrived, how did they enter the porch?
Well, they entered the porch. It's if you're facing the front door, it's a side porch, and so there's just a simple walkway along the house to it, probably 15-20 feet would be the approach distance, and they would have approached from my right side.
All right. And when they approached from your right side, what did you hear Mr. Burns say?
Well, there wasn't any conversation until basically they came up the porch. I stood up to greet them, said hello. So basically they walked up to the seating area. And so there was the initial thing was me saying, "Hey, how you doing? Good to see you." Shook his hand, greeted Nicole. And so that was the, initial conversation. What spawned after that took probably 30 seconds before we had a full physical altercation. So it was a very quick sequence of events after that.
Okay. Now, what did Mr. Burns say, if anything, after you shook hands and said, "Good to see you"?
Yeah, I said, "Hey, good to see you." And then he, basically spoke to acknowledge, Miss Edney and Mr. Wang, just, "Hey, how you doing?" But there was no response from them. Miss Edney was actually texting a friend. Actually, we were both she was texting sort of a mutual friend at the time. And so basically she just focused on her telephone. She just essentially ignored, just stayed focused on the phone, really did not acknowledge his presence or anything. And neither did Mr. Wang. And so that was, maybe about 5 seconds, just, "Hey, you're not going to say anything." And then there was something to the effect, of, "Well, you don't have to be a B about it." And at that point,
I'm sorry, Mr. Dr. Gibbons, who said you don't have to be a bitch about it?
Mr. Byrne.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And was Mrs. Edney standing or sitting at the time that Mr. Byrne was addressing her?
She was sitting.
Okay. And then what happened next, Dr. Gibbons?
And so after, the comment of, "Hey, you don't have to be, a bitch about it," that's when she said, something to do that, "Your girlfriend's a bitch." And then she stood up.
Okay. She is who?
I'm sorry, Miss Edney stood up. So she said, Miss Edney said, "Your girlfriend's a bitch." And then she stood up.
Okay. Now, in relation to physically where everyone's at this moment in time, was Miss Edney still to your left?
Yes, she was still to my left, probably about 5 to 6 feet away.
Okay. And where was Mr. Byrne in relation to you physically at that point?
Immediately to my right, within 1 or 2 feet.
Okay. Where was Ms. Fraser located at that moment in time?
Probably about 2 to 3 feet behind Mr. Byrne.
Was she closer to the end of the porch, would you say?
Yes, right.
Okay.
She would have been right.
And that would have again been to your right. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. All these questions have been leading. I've been pretty patient, but they're still coming.
Ms. McLaughlin?
Your Honor, I'm asking the questions, moving this along.
Okay.
He's asking leading questions. I just actually asked open-ended questions.
Objection sustained.
Thank you, Judge.
Dr. Givens, were you able to observe Mrs. Fraser and Mr. Byrne and Ms. Edney as you were standing there?
Yes.
At any point in time prior to Mr. Byrne striking Mrs. Edney, did you ever see Mrs. Edney raise her hand?
No, not at all.
Okay. After Mrs. Edney stood up, what happened next?
Okay. So immediately sensing tension, and she, she stood up. Again, it was immediately tense situation. Went from relaxed to just sort of a thick sort of animosity that I could sense. I, approached Miss Edney with the intention of just simply moving her inside into the kitchen, and then asking Mr. Byrne to leave. And so I'm facing Miss Edney as she's facing Mr. Byrne. And so basically I'm in between them. So Mr. Byrne is behind me. I'm facing Miss Edney. Miss Edney is right in front of me. And at that point, we're all within 1 foot of each other. So Mr. Byrne is a foot behind me, or really, his chest is sort of touching my back. Miss Edney is immediately in front of me. And it was the most odd thing I've ever experienced, but I had no idea that coming from behind my right ear would be a punch that lands on Miss Edney's left cheek. And I'm shocked by that. And then I see, from the left of me, Mr. Byrne's left arm, or, with a bottle striking her right shoulder. And so immediately, I'm sorry,
Dr. Givens. Were you able to observe what Mr. Byrne had in his hand when he struck Ms. Edney on her left shoulder?
Yes, I mean when he approached, he actually had a bourbon bottle that he brought and said, "Hey, this is gift for the house." And so basically before we sat down or whatever, like I said, this happened so quickly. So it was, "Hey, how you doing?" Comments. She stands up. I'm in between. There's a punch and then the bottle thrown, just like that. So it took me a second to even realize what happened that quickly.
Okay. And because you were facing Ms. Edney, were you able to observe before Mr. Byrne strikes her in the face, did she raise her hand at all?
She did not raise her hand. There was no physical threat, no move that anybody would consider, threatening. And again, I'm 5'10". I'm 205 pounds. She's probably 5'4", and maybe on a heavy day she may be 130 pounds. Maybe, I don't know. But either way, I mean, there was no threatening move, and I was in between both of them anyway, with the intention again of just simply, "Hey, this is a tense situation. Let me just move her inside." But before that opportunity even happened, we had the punch and the swing that occurred.
After Mr. Byrne struck Mrs. Edney in the face with his fist, what could you tell? Was it a closed fist or was it an open-handed strike?
It was a closed fist. Again, it was so quickly, but yeah, I mean, my thought is that it was a closed fist that really grazed, the left cheek. It wasn't enough to knock her back, but it certainly did. I mean, it wasn't enough to knock her down, but it was at least a strike where I could see her eye open and kind of her head sort of move backwards a bit.
Okay. And then after Mr. Byrne strikes Mrs. Edney for the second time with the bottle, what happened next?
Well, and this was sort of where, Mr. Wang got up from the seat and wrapped his arms around Mr. Byrne, and basically everybody kind of went to the ground because it was a thing of Mr. Byrne grabbed Miss Edney, even though I'm in between. I actually end up kind of going to the ground. Mr. Wang is entangled into this thing. And so, and again, no time flat, there's a grab, a pull, and a fall. And in fact, on the way down, my right cheek hits somebody's shoulder, but I couldn't tell you. But, you know, I kind of was dazed for a second because it may have been Mr. Wang's shoulder in the process of getting to you know, Mr. Byrne. But, you know, everybody's on the ground. My right arm is kind of stuck, you know, in the scrum, for lack of a better word, until one of our other neighbors was able to come and get Mr. Byrne kind of in a headlock and pull him off.
Okay. When you were down on the ground, did you observe, or were you able to observe, whether or not Mr. Byrne was physically located on top of Mrs. Edney?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Were you able to observe whether or not Mr. Byrne was physically located on top of Mrs. Edney?
Yeah. I mean, Miss Edney and Mr. Wang were basically on the bottom, sort of pinned. Mr. Byrne was on top. Kind of my right arm and shoulder was kind of squeezed in between Mr. Byrne and Miss Edney and Mr. Wang. It took a second for me to kind of wiggle out of it.
Okay. Did you observe at all whether or not Mr. Byrne had his arms or
Objection, Your Honor. These are all leading.
I mean, they are leading, but you just allow her to
I'm trying to give her a little bit of leeway to move through it, but I'm objecting now, Judge.
Okay. Miss McLaw, of course, you know you can't do leading questions, so you need to be open.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Givens, what were your observations, if any, about Mr. Byrne's contact with Mr. Wang?
What I recall is that Mr. Byrne had sort of his right elbow kind of jammed up underneath Mr. Wang's chin because he was on the ground. His right arm, right hand is somewhere around the neck, upper, you know, between the neck and chin area of Miss Edney. Probably about 15 seconds of that, of people kind of wrangling and kind of getting a loose. You know, Mr. Wang's able to kind of get the pressure off of his neck. Miss Edney's kind of, you know, trying to get his hand, you know, from around her neck area. And then our neighbor is able to get Mr. Byrne off of everybody. So this is just all, you know, 5 or 10 different actions all happening within about 10 seconds.
Whose hands were around Mrs. Edney's neck?
That would have been Mr. Byrne's. Hand, forearm area was kind of jammed up underneath the neck.
Dr. Givens, what do you do for a living?
I'm a radiation oncologist.
And you are a medical doctor in good standing in the state of Georgia?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance other than witness bolstering?
Your Honor, it's relevant because in opening, you heard statements by Mr. Spiesman that there were no visible injuries. He's a medical doctor. I'm going to get into what his observation of her injuries were. This is why asking him what he does is relevant. Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Givens, after everyone separated, what were your observations of Mrs. Edney's injuries? And let's start with her face.
Okay. Well, and I actually attended to her after Mr. Byrne left also, but she did have a clear, you know, red mark on her left cheek immediately after the altercation, as well as a probably 4.5 by 5 inch red area on her right shoulder that was really tender, and so I actually pulled out ice pack and gave her an ice pack for both areas after, you know, Mr. Byrne had been dismissed. But clearly she had been struck in those 2 areas, as what I witnessed, you know, when I was standing in between.
And what was Mrs. Edney's emotional state that you were able to observe after being struck twice by Mr. Byrne?
Mortified, shaking, quite upset, and pretty much inconsolable. And it took a long time to just really even be able to get her to just sort of sit down because she was hyperventilating And it just took a while, and by a while, I would say at least 10 or 15 minutes just to get her to calm down and breathe easy.
Was that the only time between the day, September 23rd and September 24th, 2023, that you attended to Mrs. Edney?
No, actually that same night, a second time, because after the altercation, they stayed at the house probably for about another 45 minutes to an hour. We're just trying to wrap our heads around all of this. She was
who stayed at the house?
That'll have been myself, Mr. Wang, Miss Edney, the two neighbors, the one who helped, his name is Judd, who he is the one who pulled Mr. Byrne off of Miss Edney, as well as Mr. West. So those were the people who were still at the house afterwards. Judd and Mary left. Steve stayed for a while, but eventually Mr. West left, and so it was just myself, Miss Edney, and Mr. Wang for about another hour or so. And then they said they were going to actually go home. And probably about 30 minutes later, I get a call from Mr. Wang that says, "Hey, Brittany's short of breath and she thinks she's having a heart attack." And I said, "Where are you?" And he said, "Next door at Mackenzie's." So that's immediately, if you're facing my house, immediately to the right. So I hop over there real quick, and Mackenzie's a nurse. And so Miss Edney is sitting there. She's sort of pale in the face, hyperventilating, breathing hard. And I immediately recognize, when I come in, she says, "I'm having a heart attack." But I immediately recognized that she was having an anxiety or a panic attack. And so there was a stethoscope, Miss Mackenzie had a stethoscope. I listened to her heart, checked her pulse. Her pulse was racing. Heartbeat was normal. And then it took about 15 minutes. And I just had to get her to calm down, sort of breathe slowly, breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, to finally get her, settled down. And so I attended to her at that point. It took about 20 minutes or so before she had settled. And I probably stayed for about another half hour and then went back home. And then she experienced a similar episode the following day.
Did you call law enforcement after you saw Mr. Burns strike Mrs. Edney in the face and then strike her on the arm?
No, I did not.
Why not, Dr. Gibbons?
That was something where I left it to them. It was one of those things of, look, you guys manage it however you want. I didn't feel it was my place to, call the police in that situation.
And on September 23rd, 2023, were you interviewed by law enforcement?
I was not.
Okay. Were you ever interviewed by law enforcement, Dr. Gibbons?
No.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Spitzman.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Gibbons, good to see you again. Sorry under these circumstances. All right. We previously had a hearing on what there's been allegations of stalking, right?
There was a hearing. I don't know what
you were called as a witness at that hearing, weren't you?
Right, I was a witness.
And Ms. McCaws was the lawyer that represented Ms. Edney, right?
Yes.
Okay, but before Ms. McCaws, you're aware that Ms. Edney was represented by a woman named Lisa West, right?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to relevance. We're here on battery.
Judge, I'm about to show bias. I'm
going to overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Thank you. And so you're aware that Ms. Edney was previously represented by Ms. West, right?
That's what I understand, yes.
Okay, and you know Ms. West, don't you?
Yes.
How do you know Ms. West?
She is the cousin of my wife.
Okay, so she's family to you, right?
Not blood relative, but I've known her since, for a number of years, yes.
How long have you known Ms. West?
Goes back to college days, so 1980s.
Okay, so you consider Ms. West a close friend, right?
I would consider that.
And is it fair to say that you referred Ms. Edney to Ms. West?
No.
Okay, so she coincidentally hired your wife's first cousin in this case, right?
No, they met.
Your Honor, he said he didn't refer her. It would be speculation.
I'm just asking him if he knows how they connected, Judge. I mean, this goes to his credibility.
Sure, I can answer.
Lawyer is his.
Your Honor,
he's willing, Mr. Law. He's willing to answer it. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah. So actually, Ms. West met my wife at my wife's birthday party. So that would have been in June. That would have been their first introduction.
Okay. You said Miss West met your wife. You met Miss West.
Well, I had a birthday party for my wife and invited Miss West.
Miss West. Okay.
Right. And that's where they met. So
and by
that's where Miss West met Miss Edney.
There we go. Sorry. I think you, all right. So at a birthday, and you would agree that Miss Edney's a pretty close friend of yours, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Miss Edney's a pretty close friend of yours, and her previous lawyer, who she met at the birthday party, Miss West, is a pretty close friend of yours, right?
Right. So keep in mind, they met, my wife's birthday is in June. So in June is when they met.
Okay. And I'm just talking about you. So it's fair to say that you care about what happens to Miss Edney, right?
I care about, yeah, I mean, she's a friend, but okay. My testimony is unbiased. What happened is what happened. So that's what I'm testifying about.
Despite the fact that she retained your wife's first cousin at the previous hearing, right?
For me, that has absolutely no bearing on my testimony.
Okay. All right. That's fair. All right. So just so I'm clear, so you indicated that my client, and you would, well, I should say this, you would agree that it's unlikely my client knew that Miss Edney was going to be at your party, right? You didn't disclose that to her, did you?
No, I did not disclose that.
Okay. So when he arrived at the party with Miss Fraser, his fiance, it's fair to say he had no knowledge she was going to be there, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That would call for speculation as to what Mr. Burns' knowledge was.
That's 100% correct, Mrs. Spitzman.
So based on, you took no actions to inform him that she would be there, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And you probably didn't tell Miss Edney that Mr. Byrne would be there either, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's because you didn't believe that there was going to be any friction or any issues between the two of them, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you were also aware that the two of them were pretty decent friends in the past, right?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, you're aware that they traveled the world together as couples, right?
Your Honor, objection, relevance.
There's an allegation that my client walks up and effectively cold clocks Miss Edney in the face, right? And so if there's any aggravation or non-aggravation leading up to that moment, that goes to the likelihood of the series of events as they occurred. So it's absolutely relevant.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, the legal standard is whether or not Mr. Byrne intentionally made physical contact of an insulting or provoking nature with the person of another, or intentionally caused physical harm to another. So the fact that, as Dr. Givens has testified, Mr. Byrne punched my client in the face and then hit her with a bottle, whether it doesn't matter if they were best friends or not, it really doesn't matter. It's not.
I gotta agree with Mrs. Spitzman. So
okay,
go ahead.
I move on, Judge. Okay, no problem. All right. So you indicated that Mr. Byrne arrives with Miss Fraser and they bring you a gift for having them over, right?
Right.
Bottle of bourbon, right?
Bottle of bourbon.
Okay. And he initially says hello or greets Miss Edney, right? So he addresses her in a polite way to begin with, correct?
Well, yes, he says, "Hey, how you doing?"
Okay. And there was nothing about the way he said it that caused you concern or made you sense that there was going to be any issue, right?
Not at that immediate point, correct.
Okay. And then he says to her, well, you don't have to be a bitch about it, indicating you don't have to ignore me, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That would cause speculation. There would be no way for Dr. Givens to know what was in Mr. Byrne's mind.
Judge, he can interpret what he heard. That's all I'm asking for. If he doesn't know the answer, Dr. Givens is perfectly capable of saying, I don't know. I can assure you of that.
I'll overrule that objection. Go ahead, Mrs. Spitzman.
Thank you. And so he indicates to Miss Edney that you don't have to be a bitch about it. And from your perspective, it was because he was referencing a non-response, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then at that time, she responds by saying, your girlfriend is a bitch, right?
Right.
Okay. And then she actually stands up, right?
Correct.
And now you indicate that at that point in time, Mr. Byrne was about a foot from you and Miss Fraser was 2 to 3 feet behind you, correct?
She was 2 to 3 feet behind Mr. Byrne.
Okay. And you indicated that at that time when she stands up, Miss Edney's 5 to 6 feet behind you, correct?
That's correct.
But what you testified to is that the altercation occurred, Miss Edney was just a foot away from you, right?
Right. And so here's the scenario here is that when we go from escalation from high to you don't have to be a bitch about it to your girlfriend's a bitch. And so I'm astute enough to recognize, okay, this is escalated from just, sort of a dislike to really something that's, you're going to be a yelling match, a shouting match. And so my intention was just simply to intervene and let's just remove Ms. Edney from the situation. Let me just push her inside and let's just, because I've never experienced something like that. I mean, everybody's professional, but that just escalated out of nowhere.
And that's because, at least part because Miss Edney said your girlfriend's a bitch, right? That helped escalate it, didn't it?
Well, everything escalated. Yeah. I mean,
so is the answer yes, that Miss Edney saying your girlfriend's a bitch to Mr. Byrne escalated the incident?
I'm saying it escalated just the tension in the entire situation.
Right. And then you also indicated that Miss Edney went from 5 feet away from you to a foot away from you. So she clearly progressed onto the escalated situation, meaning she moved toward Mr. Byrne, didn't she?
She did close the distance.
Okay. So at this point in time, Mr. Byrne has made an inappropriate comment. Miss Edney has responded with an inappropriate comment, but then moved closer to Mr. Byrne while he stood his ground, correct?
That would be, yeah. I mean, he didn't move forward. Okay. I moved toward, yes, she moved toward both of us. Because again, Mr. Byrne was immediately next to me, so he was a foot away. Right. And then, yeah, so she did, basically kind of come to get closer.
So, yeah. So what I'm saying is while Mr. Byrne stood next to you and did not move toward Miss Edney closed 5 feet of space and moved toward Mr. Burns, correct?
She did approach, come close, right?
Okay. And now you indicated that when you saw her come close, you turned to her to stop her from progressing toward Mr. Byrne any further, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That completely misstates his testimony. He never said that.
He can answer the question, Judge. This is cross-examination.
Yeah, I didn't have to turn to her. I mean, I'm facing her, and actually, I'm standing up with the intention of actually, approaching her, to just, hey, I really just wanted to just move her out off the porch area and out of the way. And so at that point, there was no threatening move made by her other than simply walking toward him. But really, I was in between, so she was really coming closer to me. And so there wasn't anything threatening there. But
hold on a second.
I didn't have to turn to her. I was automatically sort of facing her because I'm looking at the TV where she walks in.
Hold on a second. You're saying that you said this incident occurred within 30 seconds, right?
Right.
So the only way she could have closed those 5 feet is very fast, right?
Well, she's 2 or 3 feet away, so 2 or 3 steps. She stands up, walks 2 or 3 steps, and that closes 5 feet real quickly.
Okay. All right. So she closes those 5 feet real quickly. She's called Mr. Burns' fiance a bitch, and it's your statement that wasn't in any way provocative or aggressive. Is that your testimony?
No, I mean, what she says, your girlfriend's a bitch. Yeah, that's provocative. But that wasn't anything violent or threatening from a standpoint of she didn't raise her hand. She didn't have a weapon in her hand. Nothing to that effect. Okay. And you would agree with me that Mr. Byrne has no duty to retreat or run away from her progressing toward him, right? He wouldn't have to, no. Okay. All right. And you would also agree with me that you were facing Miss Edney, your back was to Mr. Byrne, right? Correct. Okay. And so you'd agree with me that you don't have eyes in the back of your head, so you can't see what happened from behind you, right? Correct. Okay. All right. So then you say at that point in time, what you see is you see Mr. Byrne, I think, throw his right hand around you and strike Miss Edney, right? That's correct. I'm facing Miss Edney. He's immediately behind me, and I can hear/feel his arm come around, and I can see his right fist strike her cheek. Okay. So now, when you said that you were right next to Miss Edney, were you able to see both of her hands at all times? Yes, she was in front of me. Okay, so you said she was in front of you, but for Mr. Burns to come around you, she would have to be inches next to you, right? No. She was within 12 to 15 inches from me. Okay, and within 12 to 15 inches from you, you're able to not only see what Mr. Byrne does from behind you, but also exactly where Miss Edney's hands are at all times prior to him throwing that alleged first punch. Is that your testimony? I can see anything from the side of my peripheral vision here on the side. I can, first of all, I felt his arm whisk by me. I heard the air sort of of the punch. And then once it came into sight, I saw his right hand strike her left cheek. So that's not eyes behind my head. That's peripheral vision and moving forward. She's immediately in front of me. Did you see where her feet were at all times? Yeah, they were on the ground. Okay, so feet were on the ground, hands are in the air, and you're 12 to 15 inches away from her, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That misstates his testimony. He said,
move along, Mr. Spitzman.
We're not in the air.
Okay, I'll move on. All right. Then at that point in time, you indicate that Mr. Wang jumps off of the couch and wraps his arms around Mr. Byrne, right?
Right.
You indicate that Mr. Wang, Mr. Byrne, Miss Edney, and you, Dr. Gibbons, all fall to the ground, 4 of you, right?
I go to the ground. That's correct.
And while you are on the ground, sandwiched between, I don't know, let's call it 500 pounds of people, you're able to see exactly where Mr. Byrne's hands are at all times, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that his arm was, or his left arm was pinned on her chest, neck area. His elbow has Mr. Wang pinned down. My arm is caught kind of underneath Mr. Byrne's chest for about 8 to 10 seconds before I'm able to wiggle out and get free.
You agree that you indicate there was 5 to 10 actions that occurred in less than 30 seconds, right? That was what your testimony was previously, that there was 5 to 10 actions that occurred within 30 seconds. That's accurate, right?
That happened pretty quickly.
And it's also your testimony, you're able to see every one of those 5 to 10 actions, right?
Everything that I described is what I saw.
Okay. When Mr. Byrne allegedly struck Miss Edney and everyone responded, wouldn't Mr. Wang coming in from the side push you kind of toward Mr. Byrne? So you're kind of sandwiched between them?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because Mr. Wang, when he jumps up and, wraps around Mr. Byrne, there's a spin, he goes to the ground, Miss Edney goes to the ground. I'm pinned in between Mr. Byrne, Miss Edney, and partially Mr. Wang until I can wrangle myself out and free.
You facing down or you facing up?
I'm facing down.
Okay. All right. And so did you ever see Miss Edney bite Mr. Byrne on the top of the head?
No.
That was one of the 5 to 10 actions you didn't see, right?
That's correct. Did not see that.
Okay. All right. And you would agree that that Mr. Wang's, that guy's in pretty good shape, isn't he?
Yeah, he's physically fit.
Like, by physically fit, I mean he lifts weights. He's a really muscular, strong guy, right?
Yes.
You would agree that he weighs more and is much stronger than Mr. Byrne would appear to be based on your visual estimates?
I'm not sure. I mean, Mr. Wang is muscular, but he's short. I would maybe estimate his weight maybe about 160 to 180.
Okay. You'd agree with me, though, if you had to pick one of them in an arm wrestling match, you take Mr. Wang 10 out of 10 times, right?
I wouldn't take either one of them.
Okay. All right. All right. So just so I'm clear.
Mr. Spitzman, I need to break in for a minute. You guys got to wrap this one up. Hold on one second. Let me get with Miss Linton and Mr. Williams, and then I got to take a restroom break after I get with them. Okay.
Come back in 5 minutes, Judge. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right.
Come back in 5 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. That's okay. Good. I had an opportunity to review the TPO that was issued. Because you had initially the ex parte, then I got the TPO for 1 year. And that, as presented by evidence by the Ms. Linton, along with all the other evidence that's been presented, I found that it's sufficient probable cause to issue a warrant in this matter. Mr. Williams, I don't know anything about your criminal history in this matter, but I do know that I'm going to understand what I need to do as far as getting you a bond. And in here, there's slashing of 2 tires, which was that we have right here as a criminal trespass with less than $500. That will be the charge going forward. And I'll set a bond for you, Mr. Williams, in the amount of $1,000. That can be cash or surety. Okay. And what's going to happen is, Ms. Linton, you can come down and once you get this paperwork together, you can come down and sign this if you have not already signed it. And I will put the bond amount on the bond amount will be placed on the warrant. And basically what will happen is, Mr. Williams, the clerk's office will make contact with you and let you know that it has been signed and what have you, and you go ahead and turn yourself in. I will suggest that you kind of turn yourself in sooner than later. I will give you until Monday to turn yourself in.
This young lady is just really, really doing a lot trying to tear my reputation down, sir. I have no prior record until I came in contact with her. Since I've met her, I've been learning stuff over and over. I've been going to therapy because of this young lady.
I understand, but that's not relevant right now for this. Okay. So let me just finish giving this information. So, let's say turn yourself in by Tuesday. Tuesday will be November 28th. Is that correct? Yeah, November 28th.
Yes, that's correct. Mr. Williams, if you don't mind, can you please put your email address in the chat? Oh, you know what? I think I got yours from the evidence you sent.
You got it from the evidence. I think
yeah, that way I can send you the instructions.
All right, and that will be the ruling of the court. And all parties are excused. Thank you. I'm sorry. One other thing, there will be a stay away order in there.
There is.
No, I'm talking about in the bond itself. For you to stay away from Juliana Linton.
Sir, I'm not even supposed to go near her, so I can't go to that jail.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm gonna make sure I put that in my order too. Okay. All right. So no confusion.
Trying to get me there because she have her friends in there trying to do whatever you know.
Yeah. Well, if she's trying to goad you in the comment,
I can't do that. Judge, I'm an officer.
Miss Linton, listen. There's no need for you to talk.
Thank you.
If she's goading you to get there, that's something you'd have to deal with. However, the stay away order is for you, not her. Okay.
So I'm getting a stay away order because of what?
Because I issued as far as the stay away order because you slashed your tires. Okay?
I did slash your tires, but anyway, right
now, listen, Mr. Williams, that's the ruling. Okay, I'm sorry. We can argue it, but there's no more argument regarding that matter. That I have made my decision, and that's what it is. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Y'all parties are excused, and I'm going to take about a 5-minute break. Maybe you guys may want to have some more meaningful contact and conversation regarding this matter. All right.
Judge, I went into the breakout room and I was told the only offer is my client going to jail. So I don't know what I can do with that, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think I just had 2 or 3 questions, Judge. I'm all done.
All right.
Dr. Givens, you indicated that, let me ask you this question. That bottle of bourbon didn't break, did it?
No, it did break.
So throughout all this scuffle, him hitting her with the bottle, 3 men and 1 woman falling to the ground, 500-600 pounds of people, that bottle of bourbon didn't break, right?
Didn't break.
Okay. Now, initially you said that my client punched Miss Edney in the face, but then you classified it when I crossed you as a graze, that he grazed her with his fist. Which one was it?
Well, I mean, I look at a punch or graze. His fist struck her left cheek, but it wasn't so much of a direct hit that, I think of a punch more as cold cock, where you knock somebody out. This was enough to cause her head to sort of rock back, but not a direct right hook that would have, because really that would have knocked her out. But it was enough to knock her head back and to create a mark, but not so much to knock her out or knock her to the ground.
Okay. And it was your testimony that Mr. Burns simultaneously had a hand on Miss Edney, a hand on Mr. Wang, and was simultaneously fending off other people all at the same time while he was on the ground, right?
I didn't say anything about him fending off other people.
Okay.
All right, wrap it on up, Mr. System.
Nothing else, Judge.
All right. Mr. Laws?
Nothing else for this witness, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, I call Steve West. How do you know the plaintiff in this case, or the move-in in this case?
I know Rod and Cheryl Givens. Cheryl Givens is my wife's cousin, my wife's first cousin, and I met.
Not to interrupt, but there's another witness in the room. I don't know if everyone can see it on the bar, but there's another witness in the room. I just wanted to alert that because of technology. Excuse me.
I don't see anybody else.
Nicole Fraser's on my screen in the room.
She's a complainant, Miss Edney.
She's a complainant. She's been on.
Okay.
Miss Brittany. Miss Edney. Miss Edney.
Okay,
no outburst, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lisa and Cheryl are first cousins, and I met Miss Edney through Rod and Cheryl at a social event.
And by Lisa, you were referring to your wife, Lisa West?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, my wife, Lisa West.
Okay. Mr. West, what do you do for a living?
I'm an attorney.
And you're an attorney in good standing with the State Bar of Georgia, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And on September 23rd, 2023, where were you?
I went and visited Rod. We were watching football games throughout the day.
All right. And were you located on the porch when the Dr. Givens observed?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
I haven't even finished the question, Your Honor.
Were you located on the porch when
where were you? I mean, that's a leading already. Started leading. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's correct.
Where were you located that evening? Physically located, Mr. West?
At the time of the incident, I was in the kitchen.
Okay. What did you hear?
I was in the kitchen with a couple. We were sitting around talking at the table, and we just heard a whole bunch of what I would just call commotion.
Okay. After you heard this commotion, what did you do?
Me and the other gentleman, whose name escapes me right now, we jumped up, ran outside. There, I mean, there was a scrum of people, so we just started pulling people out of the scrum.
Okay. When you say there was a scrum of people, what specifically did you observe?
Like everybody was all together on the ground, on the deck.
Okay. Were you able to observe where Mrs. Edney was located on the ground?
I imagine she had to be at the bottom because I didn't see her.
Okay. And had you ever met Mr. Byrne prior to that evening?
I don't think so.
And after you started pulling people off, what happened next?
I pulled Peter off and held him off to a side. And at some point, I wasn't holding him, but I was physically separating Mr. Byrne from the other people.
And do you recognize the individual you're referring to as Mr. Byrne on this Zoom call?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fading away, Ms. McLaws.
Oh, sorry, Judge. Do you recognize the individual you've identified as Mr. Byrne on this Zoom call?
Yeah, he just finished drinking some water.
Okay, so that would be the respondent in this case, Jason Byrne?
Yes.
Okay.
Jason, yes.
After you were physically separating Mr. Byrne, did you happen to have a conversation with him?
Yes, we spoke, yes.
What did Mr. Byrne say to you?
He said that he hit Ms. Edney because she was about to hit him.
Okay. Where were you when Mr. Byrne told you that he hit Mrs. Edney because she was about to hit him? Where were you at that point?
If it's, well, I don't know how to describe it, but the porch or the area of the porch is like a sitting area where the incident happened. When he and I had that exchange, we were standing closer to the front of the house. The house has like a wraparound porch. So we were maybe, I don't know, 15 feet from where the incident happened.
Did Mr. Byrne make any statements to you at all about any of Ms. Edney's actions besides she was about to hit him?
Your Honor, leading. I mean.
Yeah, that's a leading question, Mr. McLaws.
Besides the statement you said, were there any other conversations you had with Mr. Byrne?
I think at some point he said he really wanted to apologize to Rod. And I think I more or less said something like, you know, that's not a good idea right now. I can't remember much else, to be honest. It was just, you know, that type of situation.
Were you able to observe Mrs. Edney after the incident that occurred?
Yes.
What were your observations?
She was very upset. She said that she, you know, pretty much couldn't believe that a man had attacked her, I believe. That was really a point of emphasis for, in terms of the emotion that she had. Eventually, she started to calm down over the course of several minutes. But the primary thing that I observed was she was just obviously very upset.
Were you ever interviewed by law enforcement?
No.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Sisson?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. West, just to be clear, your wife is Attorney Lisa West, right?
Correct.
Same Lisa West that represented Miss Edney at one point in time, right?
Correct.
And I imagine, just like me and my wife, you and Miss West share in the financial, you know, the money that comes into your household, right?
I don't understand your question.
Like if she gets hired on a case, that's you guys sharing that money, right? Your husband and wife. That's
not necessarily how we do things. I mean,
okay. I don't mean to pry, but you'd agree with me that Miss Edney paid Miss West money to represent her, right?
I have no idea. That's what I'm saying to you. I don't get involved in my wife's business and she doesn't get involved in mine.
Okay, but you're aware that she represented Miss Edney?
Yes.
Okay, and you're also clearly close friends with Dr. Gibbons and his wife, right?
Yeah, sure.
In fact, you kind of consider them family, wouldn't you?
Well, it's my wife's family, so yes.
Okay, fair enough. You did not witness the altercation at all, right?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. But what you did indicate is that Mr. Byrne indicated that he struck Miss Edney because Miss Edney was going to strike him, right?
Yes.
And I'll ask you the same question I asked you the last time. That could have been because he acted in self-defense, correct?
That's what he would seem to be saying to me.
All right, nothing further, Judge.
I just have one.
I got one follow up. Mr. West, I got a question. How soon after this incident did you have this conversation with Mr. Burns?
It was as soon as we separated all the people out.
So was it within 30 seconds, within 45 seconds, within minutes? How soon?
I would say within the span of maybe a couple minutes.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Ms. McLaws.
Mr. West, in this conversation that you had with Mr. Byrne, was there any indication that did he ever indicate to you he had only shoved?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Once again, that's leading, Ms. McLaws. You got to be open in it.
Yes, Your Honor. I have nothing further, Your Honor, for Mr. West.
I'm going to reiterate once again to the attorneys that you guys may want to try to resolve this. These seem like to be friends and what have you. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but you may want to see, can you take an opportunity as neutral and detached and not neutral, detached, actually objective. I'm sorry, I'm neutral and detached and objective in this matter. Have a conversation, a serious conversation about trying to resolve this.
Judge, we are so open to that. I mean, the only statement I've got from Ms. McCaws without her even talking to her client is the only thing we'll agree to is your client's going to jail. We are amenable to anything but that, Judge. So I don't know what else we can do other than just indicate that to the court. That's the statement that was made to me.
So, Ms. McLaws, you have no interest in trying to get it resolved?
I've had conversations previously, Your Honor.
That's not true.
That is true.
I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about what previously. I'm talking about right now at this moment.
Well, Your Honor,
let me just say this. Let me just say this right now that, there could be a possibility that everyone here goes to jail.
You haven't heard all the evidence, Your Honor, so I'm not sure how you can make that statement.
I'm making an observation based upon so far 2 neutral persons have indicated what transpired that weren't involved in this, what have you, and then even with the excited utterance that was made by the Mr. Burns, is that this situation was and of course I asked him, well, how much time between the time that he made this incident happen and he made a statement, and is almost teetering on a simple assault.
I don't see how you can make that observation, Your Honor. When Dr. Gibbons testified, my client never raised her hand.
Okay, I'm just telling you what.
I don't see how that can be an assault.
I'm just saying to you what Mr. West has said. Okay, you brought him as a witness.
Yes, Judge, but you haven't heard all the evidence.
Right, but
what you're going to hear, Your Honor, is that Mr.
Hold on, Ms. McLaws. Hold on. This is your witness. Okay, your witness has came on and said that, of course, he didn't see anything, but he did have a conversation because you brought him on strictly for the conversation he was having with Mr. Burns. And in that conversation he had with Mr. Burns, he indicated that, hey, listen, that he did this because of the fact that she was about to strike him. Now, I'm just telling you that's what was said. Right?
That is what he said, Your Honor. However, you haven't heard all the evidence. Mr.
Right,
Burns has already, Your Honor.
Ms. McLaws, listen, continue on with your case. Okay.
No, Your Honor, I think what absolutely concerns me is you are making statements on the record and you haven't heard all the evidence.
I'm asking you, I asked a question about, is it a possibility you guys resolve it? I said, there could be a possibility that everyone goes, you're correct, I have not heard all the evidence, but there could be a possibility that everyone goes to jail. And I'm saying to you is that, hey, as I look at what's going on, and what I hear what's going on, so far the 2 witnesses you have presented, and then one witness, the last witness, who said, of course, he said he didn't see anything, but he did have this conversation with Mr. Burns. And you brought him on particularly for this conversation he had with Mr. Burns. And in that conversation, he indicated that Mr. Burns told him that, hey, she was the threat. She threatened basically in result of he hit her as a result of he felt that she was about to hit him.
That's not what Mr. West testified to.
Mr. Burns
said Your Honor, you haven't heard the evidence.
Okay, I'm just
concerns me about this conversation. I truly believe you've already made up your mind.
I have not made up my mind. I'm just listening to what the evidence is.
You sound like it. So, Judge,
I'm just telling you what the evidence is so far.
And I honestly believe, Judge, based on your statements, that there is enough to recuse you at this point. And I would ask that you be recused.
Recusal is denied.
Statement.
Thank you. Recusal is denied. Ms. McLaws, recusal is denied. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate it. But my thing is right now is that I'm just going off the 2 witnesses that you presented, okay?
Right. And you haven't heard it all.
Okay. How many other witnesses do you have?
I have my client and then Mr. Byrne, who has already testified, Your Honor, at a previous hearing that he only shoved my client.
Okay,
And Mr.
let me ask you a
West's
question. Let me ask you a
statement,
question. Did you have that? Do you have that? Do you have that transcript? That's what I'm asking. Because I asked you that earlier before we make this presentation. I said, do you have that transcript?
It'd be impossible, Judge. We got the invoice just for the takedown today.
That's what I'm saying. I asked you that in the beginning. Did you have that transcript? Because I was very much curious about what occurred in that previous hearing as far as testimony.
then Judge, I would ask the court to continue this so we can have the transcript so that you can absolutely hear and see. Because the truth of all of this is very important, Your Honor. It's very important to my client.
I'm with you. I'm understanding.
And then, yeah, I would ask for a continuance then, Judge, so we can get a certified copy so you can see Mr. Byrne's sworn testimony and why Mr. West's statements are important. He testified, Your Honor, that he shoved her. He swore, I never hit her. Therefore, the statement he made to Mr. West, you could then draw the conclusion that Mr.
But I don't have that information.
Right, so I'd ask for continuance then so we can get a certified copy.
Well, Ms. McLaws, I asked you at the beginning, and you did not ask you about the transcript at the beginning. You could have asked for a continuance to that point. You did not do that.
But I can ask now.
Yeah,
I can ask at any point.
Continuance is denied. Okay, continuance denied. Please go on with your next witness.
Fine, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Mr. West, I have no further questions for Mr. West. May he be excused, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am. No objection. Mr. West, you may be excused. Either you can go to the breakout room or you can leave. Either one.
If the court doesn't need me anymore, I just assume.
Okay. They're excusing you, so I don't need you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Who's called your next witness?
I'll call Brittany Edney.
Don't you have Mr. Wang in there also? He's still in?
Yes, Mr. Wang is still in the way.
No, Mr. Wang's in the breakout room.
I said Brittany Edney.
Oh, you're not calling Mr. Wang?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay. All right. All right. All right, Ms. Edney, you've been sworn, okay, in this matter, under oath. And I do want to caution you, you're not required to say, of course, your lawyer's already gone over this with you. You're not required to say anything at all in this. You're not required to present any testimony or any evidence. If that's your choice, you have the right to remain silent, and that cannot be held against you. So understanding that, my understanding is that Ms. McLaws is calling you as a witness. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. Yes.
All right, go ahead. You've already been sworn.
Pardon?
So you've already been sworn. Go ahead.
Okay. And where were you on September 23rd, 2023?
I was on Dr. Rod Given's side porch area where he was hosting a get-together, and I was on the porch where him and my husband were watching football on the television. And I was just on my phone because I don't like sports, and I was just sitting on the couch there.
All right. When were you on your phone is what I think you just said?
Yes, ma'am. I was just like this talking to one of my friends because I was letting her know that Rod had said hello and that kind of thing. So I was talking to one of my friends and texting.
All right. And at some point in time, Mr. Byrne and his fiance appeared on the porch. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, these are all weaving. Just open-ended questions, please.
Were you aware that Mr. Byrne was going to be at the get-together?
No, ma'am.
Would you have gone if you had been aware?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because I had told him a year and a half ago when he was yelling and cussing at me on the phone.
Yes, Your Honor, relevance. Your Honor, I believe you sustained the objection as related to questions that occurred, things in the past. We're here for this battle.
Well, unfortunately, Mrs. Spitzman, I wanted to understand what her state of mind was. So go ahead, Ms. Edney.
Yes, sir. Your Honor, sir. So can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, that just...
You said you would not have gone if you known that Mr. Byrne was there. I asked you why not.
Because when we had a falling out a year and a half ago over an HOA matter, he was yelling and cursing at me on the telephone, and I told him he wasn't going to speak to me disrespectfully, and it was the final straw that I had with him from his disrespect to other women, his just red flags of behavior, spraying women with hoses.
Objection, Your Honor. This is so all irrelevant.
Understand that, Ms. Edney, go ahead and kind of streamline it, okay? If you could.
Sure. So because of everything that I'd seen him do and say, even though I was friends with Nicole, I just was like, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore because I'm not going to have a man speak to me this way. So I hung up on him and said, don't ever talk to me again. Since that day, I had not talked to him again. And he has basically a falling out had at this point with the entire neighborhood.
Objection, Your Honor.
Hold on. Relevance. Okay, I got it. All right, just stick with the situation between you and Mr. Burns, okay?
Right. So I guess what I was trying to explain, maybe I'm not saying it right, is people knew that I didn't want to be around him.
Okay.
is how I'm trying to
Hold on
say.
1 second. I got a problem that my computer's gonna automatically restart because of the county in 13 minutes, and I'm trying to stop it from restarting. If you can hold on, let me try to figure this out. All right, hold on 1 second.
Yes.
I can't put it on snooze. So, and I don't know how long it's gonna take for it to reboot.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, Judge.
Yes,
All
Your
right.
Honor.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Miss Edney.
Where are we at now, sir? All right.
You left off of basically issues we were saying that everyone in the neighborhood knew that you did not want to be associated with him.
Right. Yes, sir.
So on September the 23rd, 2023, where were you located physically?
Sitting down on the couch.
And how far away from the entrance to the side porch were you?
The furthest away. It's up against the back railing. So the entrance is the front railing. The couch is up against the back railing.
Prior to Mr. Byrne and Ms. Fraser arriving at the porch, were you ever physically located anywhere else?
Objection, Your Honor, leading. This is leading.
I'm not even done with the question.
It's a leading question. You
It's
don't have
not
to
a
finish
leading
it.
question. Were you located somewhere else? As open-ended as it can get.
Where were you located?
Right.
I was sitting on the couch on the patio. I was in the house previously making cheese dip on the stove for the group, making like queso and beef cheese dip. But then we had moved out there, so Peter and Rod could watch the start of the game, and so I was just sitting there on the phone texting to my friend while they watched the game outside.
Prior to that occasion, did you have any observations of Mr. Byrne that day?
Yes, when we were inside earlier in the kitchen, when I was making the cheese and queso dip, Rod was standing there with me chatting, and he has a huge, like it takes up almost the size of the wall, window from his kitchen that overlooks Jason's backyard. And while we were standing there doing the dip stuff, and he was sitting there chatting with me, all of a sudden I see Rod turn around and wave like this through the window, and I look and see Jason waving to him through that glass window. But I mean, I didn't, he was just waving to him, and I didn't think anything like of it because he just waved to Jason. I had no idea. Rod never made any comment like Jason was invited, Jason's coming. Rod had actually told me and my husband, and we have, text messages that he understood that we didn't want to be around them because of what I had explained about Jason's past behavior.
Okay. So when Mr. Byrne and Mrs. Fraser arrived onto the porch, what happened next?
They were just greeting Rod or whatever. When I tell you I was ignoring them, I don't even know what they were saying amongst themselves because I was just genuinely ignoring them, just very casually, like on my phone, like just not going to have anything to do with them. And that was my position on it. I was like, I'm just going to ignore them. They know that I don't want to have anything to do with them. I blocked both of them on all social media and their phone numbers. There wasn't any conversation to be had. So I was just going to ignore them. And that's what I did.
Okay. And after you ignored them, what happened next?
When I genuinely say I wasn't really listening to what he was saying to me. He was saying some stuff, but I really wasn't paying attention. And all of a sudden heard, ignore me. And so I said, so I just looked up from my phone and very casually, not like raising my voice, just speaking to you like I'm speaking now. I was like, but firmly, I was like, yes, because you were disrespectful to me last year, year and a half ago. And then Nicole said something to the effect of get over it. That was over a year ago. And to which I said, no, you were a bitch to me then too. I don't want to have anything to do with either of you, is essentially what I said. I wasn't yelling or screaming or anything like that. I was explaining why I was ignoring them and why I didn't want to have anything to do with them and to just like basically keep it moving. Like there's nothing to be seen here. There's nothing to do. Like just kind of keep it moving, like just stop. No, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to have anything to do with you type of thing.
Were you sitting down at
Yes,
that point in time?
The whole time from the moment they arrived. Yeah, I was just entirely sitting down. Yeah, even having this conversation sitting down.
Okay. And where was Mr. Byrne?
Jason was standing next to Rod holding and showing him a liquor bottle. And
Okay.
Nicole was off to the side. I didn't even really see her too much. She was off back to a side.
All right. And after you made the statement to Mr. Byrne about what happened next?
He said, word for word, call my fiance a bitch and I will hit you. Word for word, yelling. And call my fiance a bitch and I will hit you. And he was yelling that. And so well, now because of all the weight I've lost, I'm 122 pounds. I'm 5'3". He's a lot bigger than me. And I have a grown man yelling and screaming that he is going to hit me. First off, I wasn't yelling something like, oh, you're a bitch or whatever like that. I just said the why, very matter-of-factly. I said, disrespectful to women. And when she said her comment, and then I said, and you were a bitch to me, and I don't want to have anything to do with you either. Again, like that's all it was. And so then he threatened to hit me.
What happened next?
I stood up and I said to these exact words, I said, hit me. You're not going to hit me. And at that point, Rod was like in front of me because he was to the Jason and Rod were beside each other, kind of more even, like just side to side. And Jason showing him this liquor bottle that he brought or something. And then Rod gets in between us, and Rod is in between us. And again, I'm very small. Rod's big, Jason's big. And then the next thing that Jason does is he takes his right arm and in a closed fist comes and punches me right here on the left cheek. And then after I get punched in the face, the next thing I know, I got a full sealed liquor bottle hits me right here, going all the way across. It felt like I was getting hit by a baseball bat. It was so painful. And like when I tell you how intense a full bottle of liquor feels like when it comes and it hits you, and it was swung at me like a baseball bat, and it felt like a baseball bat hitting me.
Did you ever raise your hand?
No, ma'am. As I mentioned, I had my cell phone in my right hand, texting and everything. I still had my phone in my hand when I stood up. That ended up falling to the floor along with my sunglasses as that also broke, and other things that I had on me that all like fell when I got attacked by him. But I never raised a hand, and I had my phone in my hand, and I never would raise my hand. Like the whole thing is like I was ignoring them, and I'm just so shocked by this whole like victim gaslighting thing, because like he attacked me and I didn't do anything to this man.
Did you attempt to hit Mrs. Fraser at all?
No, Nicole wasn't involved in this. Besides like that one little remark, she wasn't involved in this. She wasn't the reason why I stopped wanting to be friends. It was him. She didn't even have anything to do with this, like at all. She was off to the side. Even when he attacked me and then ultimately pulled me to the floor and then was keeping me from breathing and was on top of me, like even through that, she still didn't even come and do anything to anyone. She wasn't involved. Jason did all this to me. A man on a woman did this to me. And that was what was so shocking and upsetting, because I didn't do anything to this man. And the next thing I know, I get punched in the face and then hit with a liquor bottle.
Where was she now? How far away distance-wise was Nicole Fraser from you when you stood up?
8 to 10 feet, all the way across. She wasn't anywhere near me.
All right. After Mr. Burns strikes you in the face and hits you with the bottle, what happened next?
After that, so he hit me with the bottle, and then I got when he hit me right here, going all the way across with the bottle, and then I got pulled down by him onto the ground. And then what happened next is, so he's on top of me, right? But how do I explain it? So like I'm on the ground, and then Jason's on top of my body with my husband in a headlock on top of him. So it's like a layered effect. Like the bottom Oreo, I don't know how, I'm just trying to explain it to give you a visual. Like the bottom Oreo piece is me. Jason's in the middle, the cream. And he's got my husband by a headlock like this, and he's on top. And all I can see is my husband's face, and his eyes are like this, and they're not moving. Not just like not blinking, but like they're like this, and the pupils aren't moving, and there's blood coming all the way down his face, his face and neck and everything. Ultimately, it would be all over my jeans and stuff too. But
Miss Edney, let me ask, because I want to clear something up. You said that Mr. Burns had your husband in a headlock?
Oh, but on top of me. And so he was pushing his back against me, his body weight against me, with my husband in a headlock on top of him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, I hate to use my dog, but like, so if Jason were my dog, right? He's on top of me holding my husband in a headlock on top of him. So it's a layered, like a layered body effect. Am I explaining that visually?
No, you're explaining. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
At any point in time, did you threaten to hit Mr. Byrne or Mrs. Fraser?
No, absolutely not. Like I said, I only got up because I had a man yelling that he said, "I'm going to hit you." And the last thing I'm going to do is have a man yell, who's huge and much bigger than me already, yell at me and say he's going to hit me. And I stood up and, you know, had to address it. And I said, no. I said, hit me? You're not going to hit me. And that is when, well, he hit me. He punched me and then punched with one hand and then immediately swung.
Judge, at this point, it's asked and answered, Your Honor. I think we've covered this now 3 times.
Go ahead, Mr. Edney, finish up.
Mrs. Edney, did you have any concern about your husband's well-being while this was going on?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance. This is an allegation of a battery on Miss Edney. I'm not sure what that would be relevant for.
Ms. McLaw, that's not relevant at all.
Actually, Your Honor, it would be self-defense justification for why she bit him when he was laying on top of her, and I've got the case law.
They're conceding a bite, Judge, and self-defense is, you know, that's fine, but so she bit him now, if that's what they're conceding.
Your Honor, if I may, that's why it would be relevant.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. And when Mr. Byrne was laying on top of you, was he just laying or what was he doing?
No, because remember, I'm on the bottom. So I've got the weight of 2 men on top of me. And Jason is pulling Peter with his arm and choking him while pushing back against me. And I'm just getting smushed into the ground and to whatever's behind us. And so I cannot breathe. I'm struggling to breathe. I've got his weight trapping me. And all I can see is Peter bleeding and his eyes not moving. And me, I can't get out from underneath Jason pushing back. So it's like he's pulling Peter and pushing back against me.
And then what happened next?
I just started literally fighting for my life and for Peter's because his eyes weren't moving. He was being strangled. And, you know, I was moving my legs as much as I could. I was moving my arms as much as I could, but I've got the weight of 2 dudes on top of me that are extremely heavy. I felt like I was kind of getting like smushed, like a dog pile. I was underneath a dog pile and it was extremely heavy. And then I bit Jason because it's the only thing I could do because I can't get my limbs and body out from underneath it. And because he's on top of me, his head is right there. That's what I did. I was doing whatever I could to get this man off of me. I couldn't breathe.
All right.
And my husband didn't look like he was even breathing or even conscious. His eyes were like this and like not moving. Like they weren't even like looking at anything.
Okay. And after people are pulling Mr. Byrne off, what happened next?
What do you mean, like after the?
Yeah, immediately after.
The guys told Jason that he needed to leave, and were escorting him and Nicole there. And Rod brought me into the kitchen to get me like ice packs for my arm, for my cheek, my face. He had to go plug my husband's nose because it was gushing blood everywhere still, not only outside on the porch and over like our clothes and the porch and everything, but he was still gushing blood. So Rod also plugged Peter's nose, like, you know, with like tissue like this. And then I just literally just started just crying and was in hysterics. And ultimately further into the night, I was having really bad chest pains. Like I felt like I was having a heart attack. And I was at our other friend's, who's a nurse's house. And I said, look, like everyone in my family has died from heart attacks, early age heart attacks. I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. And I said, I think I'm literally going to die. I said, it feels like something's going and squeezing my heart around my heart. And that's when somebody, I don't even know who, called Rod and brought him back over because my chest was hurting so bad that it felt like somebody was squeezing it out of the cavity because I was just in so much shock that like a man would sit here unprovoked for no reason, just say, I'm going to hit you, and then punch me in the face and then hit me with a bottle.
Why didn't you call the police right away?
I was having literally a mental and emotional breakdown. I couldn't even, I was having just a hard breathing too. I don't know if it's just from hysterics or like what the physical reason is. I was having trouble after him having so much weight on me. Like I was having a really hard time breathing. And see, the guys had took care of him, the Judd and the Steve guy. They had taken care of them and got them away and came back and said, they're gone. I was worried about my physical well-being once like the threat was gone. I was worried about me. I could barely even talk to anybody there, much less police. I was worried about my physical well-being. And I was in a lot of pain. I got hit with a bottle. It felt like getting hit with a baseball bat by a man. Like the police was not my priority. Me was my priority because I thought later on I couldn't calm down. I couldn't stop having the like just pain in my chest and in my like lung cavity. I couldn't stop. My concern wasn't filing a police report. My concern was, am I going to have a heart attack because of what this man just did to me?
After September 23rd, 2022, was there a time when you actually did speak with law enforcement?
Yeah, as soon as I could. I didn't even go to sleep that night because I couldn't, and my husband didn't either. And then as soon as the Google said that the police departments were open, we went to try and go file, but the Google has the times wrong. On Sundays, they're not actually open. Even though it says headquarters has hours of operation, it doesn't. But my husband like just stayed there at the back fence parking area, jumping to get somebody's attention and waited for someone to go out for the building to their police car to get someone because he knew like how important it was for me to like talk to someone because of how scared I was. And then they got someone from the I can't remember right now, but like another precinct or whatever to come out there because they didn't have manning, whatever, and take something down. And then they said like that I would have to go and, file things and stuff. And that's what started this whole process.
Okay. So after you talked to law enforcement, you were told you would need to file an application. Is that correct? Did law enforcement
that Monday, and I have to do that Monday because they're closed on the weekends too. So I went first thing Monday.
Did law enforcement ever interview you at all on September 23rd, 2023?
The date it happened?
Right.
No. I didn't call because I didn't call them. I went the next day. So I never talked to them that day. I only talked to the man who they ended up getting to come out there from the Lawrenceville I don't know. Some man, but I got a report number for it on Sunday.
Okay. After the court denied your stalking petition, has Mr. Byrne continued to
Objection, Your Honor, completely irrelevant. There is not one iota of relevant evidence as it relates to that, or anything for that matter.
It is relevant, Your Honor, because she is in fear for her safety, and his conduct since is extremely relevant. I think it's important for the court to understand what he's been doing since to help the court frame out and put into perspective what happened that night.
First of all, Judge, he's done nothing. Second of all, Your Honor.
How would you know? Are you there?
Hey, I'm not talking to you, Ms. McCaws, but what Ms. McCaws said is the issue at hand is whether there was an assault or battery on September 23rd. So,
and whether there's
Ms. McCaws, can you just let me finish? You let me finish? And so, Judge, none of this is relevant.
The fact that there's continuing stalking, that he continues to film her, go by her home.
Judge, they can file another TPO. That's not what is here to be decided tonight.
Isn't it funny how Mr. Spiesman doesn't want to be interrupted, but he thinks nothing of interrupting while I'm talking?
Isn't it funny, Ms. McCaws?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Ms. McCaws, go ahead, and I'm gonna let you delve into it, but please make it brief.
I will, Your Honor. What has Mr. Byrne been doing since November 13th, 2023?
Yes, ma'am. Immediately within an hour of this happening, I'm a reporter for Fox 5 Atlanta, and he went and tweeted Fox 5 Atlanta.
Objection, Your Honor. This is not relevant. This was all litigated at a TPO hearing, Your Honor, for stalking that was denied. Now they are trying to effectively create some argument to the court that this is within the scope of an assault and battery that occurred on September 23rd, which it's not. This is completely irrelevant.
It's absolutely relevant. I'm not talking about what happened at the prior hearing. I'm talking about what's occurred subsequently and why my client is so very afraid of him and what his behavior is. And as the court knows, your ruling can, in fact, conform to the testimony and evidence. And it will be very brief what he's been doing since that order entered.
It's not relevant. There's no relevance to what occurred on
I want to hear a little bit of it. I want to hear a little bit of Mrs. Spitzman. Go ahead. Not much.
Sure. Can you let me know where I let off? This was just a...
Mrs. Edney, listen to the question okay? After Judge Davis entered her order, after the stalking hearing, what has Mr. Byrne been doing?
Last week, I was driving home and I was coming to the stop sign and I saw him down along the sidewalk with his dog. And of course, I came to a complete stop at the stop sign. He got his phone out, and as I'm driving, he starts filming laughing and smiling at me and be like, ha 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 ha, and smiling and laughing, and gets his phone out and is filming me driving my car, driving down to my house. He continued at that point to be another night. He was walking his dog on a separate occasion and was smiling at me creepily. And I didn't feel comfortable getting out of the car. So I had to call my husband to like come out and get me. You know, and all of that is in condition to him going to my work, to my friends, to my house, all the other
Objection, Your Honor. Again, this is all irrelevant.
I'm gonna go ahead and sustain the objection.
Okay.
I just asked this testimony to be struck, Judge. We've already litigated this whole issue with stalking.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. McLaw.
Mrs. Edney, do you fear for your safety?
Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant. Whether she's fearful of her safety in a private warrant application is not relevant for the court to inquire on. If this were a protective order hearing, Judge, it would be wholly relevant, but not if there is an act of violence on September 23rd.
Now I want to kind of stick to the facts. We're talking about September 23rd, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Edney, you consider Dr. Givens a friend, right?
Yes.
You believe that his testimony was honest and truthful, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that when he testified, he specifically said that you stated your fiance is a bitch to Mr. Byrne, right? You heard that, didn't you?
That's not what I said.
No. That's not what my question was, Ms. Edney. It's important you listen to my question. You heard Dr. Givens, who you trust, testify that he heard you say to Mr. Byrne that your fiance is a bitch, correct?
He might be mixing up what he said to me.
No. That's again not my question.
I never said that. I didn't know that they were engaged. I didn't know that they were even engaged.
Miss Ed, let's try this again. Did you hear Dr. Givens testify that you said to Mr. Byrne, your fiance or your girlfriend is a bitch? Did you or did you not hear him testify to that?
I didn't hear that exact phrasing.
Okay, so you're saying he didn't testify to that?
I don't.
Just answer the question.
I don't really. I'm not keeping a record of what everyone's saying. I'm just here to tell my truth.
Okay, all right, I got it. Okay. You'd agree with me that Dr. Givens provided accurate and truthful testimony, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Not accurate. It's not all accurate.
Edney,
okay, so all right.
Hold on, Ms. Edney. Hold on. You got to. What happens when your attorney makes an objection? Just be quiet, okay? Let me get a ruling on that. Go ahead. What was the objection, Mr. McLaw?
Asked and answered.
No, okay. Never answered, Judge, but asked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go ahead and allow it. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Ms. Edney, you would agree with me that Dr. Givens provided honest and truthful testimony, correct?
She answered that, Your Honor. It's been asked.
Judge. Okay. You would agree with me that Dr. Givens stated that you called Mr. Byrne's fiance a bitch, correct?
I don't know. I'm not keeping record of what everyone's saying.
Oh.
I don't know. I've been sitting here for several hours now listening to things. I don't know what everyone has said.
Okay.
Word for word. I don't know that.
But you're saying you didn't say that, right?
No, I said, because you were a bitch to me last year too, I don't want to have anything to do with you. He said to me, after that, he said, call my fiance a bitch and I will hit you.
Okay.
That's what Jason said to me.
You're aware
that Jason said to me.
You're aware that Dr. Givens never testified to any of that, correct?
Well, I don't know what he heard or what he thought.
So Ms. Edney, I'm going to ask yes or no questions. When I say correct, it's correct or incorrect. Okay. So we did this the last time. I need you to answer the question, then you can explain. Okay. So you're aware that Dr. Givens never testified that you said any of that, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. It's been asked and answered.
She won't answer anything.
Frankly, Your Honor, this is just argumentative. This is what he would be arguing in closing.
They're trying to put my client in jail.
Mr. McLaws, hold on. Mr. McLaws, I gave you a lot of leeway. You talked about things in the past. You talk about what a present situation may be, and because of other incidents that future incidents that have occurred with Mr. Burns. So I'm going to allow him to ask a question. Okay, we got to keep it fair on both sides now. Go ahead.
You recall that Dr. Givens never mentioned anything about the statements that you just made, correct?
What statements?
I'll move on, Judge. I think the court gets the point.
I just don't know what statements. You guys all talk and then.
Hey, Miss Edney, I'm moving on. Miss Edney, I'm moving on. Okay.
I'm trying to answer it. I just need to
move on. We're moving on. Okay. All right. Dr. Givens testified that you were 5 feet away from him at the time that there was a verbal dispute. Was that correct?
I don't believe his distance was correct. No.
Okay. Dr. Givens indicated that you moved 5 feet or toward Dr. Givens after the comment was made about you being a bitch. Is that correct or incorrect?
That's incorrect.
Okay. So Dr. Givens' testimony that you were 5 feet away from him and that you moved 5 feet toward Mr. Byrne is all incorrect, correct?
What I was saying earlier to the first question is it wasn't all accurate because his distances are off. And that's what I was saying originally may I finish, please? When you originally had asked me, is he being honest? I think he's being honest from his perspective. But from my perspective and from what I'm telling you is I believe his distances were off. And he was coming towards me as Jason was coming towards me. I got up. I maybe took a step up, but I did it to turn and face Jason because I'm in a different direction. So when I then turned and faced it, Jason, with Rod in between us, I wasn't coming at anyone aggressively. I stood up and said, hit me. You're not going to hit me. You're not going to hit me. And then I got hit by a man through another man.
Okay, thank you for telling me that. Which arm do you allege that Mr. Byrne hit you with?
He hit me, he punched me with his right hand.
Okay,
and then the other hand swung and hit me with the bottle.
Okay, so what hand did he have the bottle in?
The other hand.
No, not the other hand. Left or right? Which one?
He hit me. I'm facing this way. He's facing that way. He hit me with his right hand, and his left hand, which is the other hand, he then swung around and hit me with the sealed liquor bottle.
Okay, so you're saying that his left arm struck which side of your body?
No, I'm saying he punched me with his right arm in the face to my left cheek, right here, to my left cheek underneath my eye. And then with his other one, he hit me with the bottle and slammed it into me. He swung it. It was swinging, just like you would swing like this. It was like a 1-2 punch. It was like boom there, and then boom like that.
Okay, and
so
how
boom.
How far you were away from Dr. Gibbons at the time this occurred?
I don't know.
Okay, you don't know. All right. And then at that point in time, and you indicated that there was some pretty substantial verbal exchanges before physical contact occurred, right?
From Jason arriving onto the porch.
No, so I just need a yes or no question.
Was about 45 seconds from him getting onto the porch to
that wasn't Miss Edney, that wasn't my question. It's really important you listen to my question. Just say yes or no if it's a yes or no question. You would agree that there was a number of verbal exchanges prior to there being any physical contact, correct?
What do you mean by, can you define verbal exchanges?
He said something to you, you said something to him, he said something to you, and you said
something to him. And then he threatened me, and then it ended.
No. So is that correct or incorrect?
She has a right to explain her answer.
She doesn't answer.
She has a right to explain her answer.
Judge, she just explains.
Is that an objection, Ms. Claus?
Sorry, Judge?
Was that an objection?
Yes.
Okay.
He is interrupting her as she's explaining her answer. She
Mrs.
has a right to finish.
I want to go and let her explain. Go ahead. Listen.
I would just ask that she be directed to answer a question, yes or no, and then explain. That's it. I asked yes or no questions. I'm just asking for a yes or no answer.
Judge, I'm really doing my best, Judge. Like this, A, I'm reliving this. B, I have all this going against me, and I'm sitting here as the victim of a crime. Like this is extremely stressful, and I'm doing the best that I can. I'm not trying to avoid a question. I'm just trying to explain myself. And then he keeps interrupting me and won't let me say anything. And then he says, "Now answer the question," and then I can't remember the question because I'm being too upset.
Miss Edney, please calm down. Okay. All right. So go ahead, Mr. Spitzman.
Miss Edney, you would agree that you made at least 2 comments to Mr. Byrne before he allegedly struck you, correct?
No, I made 1. No, I mean, I have to go back and count it. I said to him, because you were disrespectful. Nicole said her reply. And then I said, I don't have anything to do with you either. Well, I said, because you were bitching me last time and I don't have anything to do with you either. And then, so I only said 1 exchange to Jason. And then that's when Jason threatened me and said, call my fiance a bitch and I will hit you.
And during this entire time, your husband, Mr. Wayne, just sat on the couch and didn't get up, right?
Correct.
Okay. And doesn't that strike you as strange that during this heated exchange where a man is allegedly in your face, your husband, who cares about you more than anyone in the world, didn't get up to intervene or stop it from occurring?
There was an exchange. Peter didn't need to speak for me. I'm speaking for myself. I don't need Peter to speak for me. I don't need a man to speak for me. I can say, no, you can't hit me. I don't have to have a man say that. I can say that on my own 2 feet, that you are not going to threaten me. Peter doesn't need to do that for me. I don't want him to do that for me. And had we thought that he would have been insane enough to punch me, clearly he would have jumped in earlier. He jumped in as soon as he could to get him and pull him off of me. I don't need Peter to speak for me. I can stand up to a man myself and say, no, you're not going to hit me and attack me.
You indicated that Mr. Byrne was physically holding you down while simultaneously choking your...
Pushing. You're not listening to my responses. I said he's pushing against me. He's not holding me. He's holding and choking my husband and pushing back against me. It's a pull and a push.
So it's your testimony that Mr. Byrne is holding you down?
No, pushing? That's not what I said, sir.
Judge, I mean, I just don't even know how to ask a question. She's interrupting me. She won't answer my questions. I'll try again.
Ms. Edney, as I told in the beginning, remember I had a discussion, is that, listen, we're going to be respectful. He asks questions, you answer the questions. That's it, okay? And if there's a yes or no question and you want to explain, you answer the question, no or yes, and then you explain, okay? It's very simple.
Mr. Byrne was physically either pushing or holding you down, correct?
He was pushing against me, correct.
He was also simultaneously choking your husband, correct?
Yes.
And during that entire time, he was, it's your testimony that he was causing such damage to your husband who was on top of him that you felt it appropriate to bite the top of his head, correct?
For what he was doing to both me and my husband, correct.
So despite the fact that you were under him and there were 2 men on top of him, he was causing such damage to all parties that you felt that it was appropriate to bite the top of his head, correct?
No, that's incorrect because I never saw Rod on the floor or in the dog pile. I never saw Rod like on the dog pile. My only viewpoint, and it doesn't mean that he wasn't, but my only viewpoint was Jason's head and my husband's face from the way that he was strangling him on top. That's all I could see from the way that I was positioned on the dog pile. I just, from my viewpoint, couldn't see Rod. But yes, I couldn't breathe, and I had the weight of 2 men. That's why I keep saying 2 on top of me. And then Peter was bleeding, and his eyes weren't moving as he was being strangled by your client.
Okay. You reported this to law enforcement, didn't you?
Yes.
And you talked to law enforcement on 2 separate occasions, didn't you?
The second time when he came and harassed me and my friends and yelled and cussed.
No, Miss Edney, that's not the question I asked you, okay?
No,
did you report it to law enforcement 1 or 2 times?
No, Judge, no, Mrs. Edney, hold on, Your Honor. He asked the question. He opened the door for her to be able to explain. He absolutely did on 2 occasions. She's explaining it. Now he wants to cut her off.
You asked about 2 occasions, so go ahead. Explain those 2 occasions.
How many times did you call the police related to this incident?
No, Your Honor, she gets to answer that question.
What are you yelling about?
Mr. Spencer, let me go ahead and hear the initial question you asked her about the 2 occasions that she spoke to the police.
Did you talk to the police on 2 occasions related to this incident?
Yes.
Okay.
May I finish? I talked to them on 2 occasions. I talked to them
related to this incident. That was the question.
Yes. May I finish? May I finish?
If it was related to this incident,
yes.
Open the door.
May I finish? Or do I stay quiet?
Go ahead, please.
Judge,
go ahead.
Judge,
listen, y'all got listen. Hold on. We've already got so far. This hearing has taken almost 3 hours. Okay, so with very few breaks in between. Other than take care of some other business that we have before the court. So listen, what I need for you guys to do is be much more civilized and basically ask questions and respond to those questions so we can get through this evidence. Because all this going back and forth, this is going to be ridiculous. This is a warrant application hearing. I got it, but this is not a trial. This is a warrant application hearing. So please, let's go ahead and move this thing along. And I'm not trying to be one with other, Mr. Spitz, but I'm just saying in general that, ask the questions, y'all ask the questions and answer and witnesses respond to them.
Judge, I'll try to make this easy.
May I respond to the question?
No, I'm gonna move on. We're gonna make this easy, okay? When you contacted the police, did you share with them Dr. Given's name and information?
Let's see. Yes, I told them that I had witnesses because the first time that I contacted the police was when Peter and I went to the thing. The second time that I contacted the police was that night when Jason came and
again, that's not what I asked, Judge.
He was yelling and cussing and saying he was going to come after me.
I asked, look at it.
Miss Edney. Miss
Edney. She gave Dr. Given's name.
Miss Edney, I don't want to hear about the other colloquy. I want, and all the other surplus. I want to know that question. That's the question he's asking. That's a yes or no.
Yes.
You did give Dr. Given's name to police as a witness, correct?
The first time his name, the second time I told him to talk to him. So I wrote it and said, here it is. And the second time, I verbally said it the second time.
When you talked to the police, you gave them Stephen West's name, didn't you?
I don't, this was so long ago and I filled out so many reports since then. I'm sure I've included everything as much as I could. I just don't remember right now. Honestly, okay. I just can't remember.
And you're aware that a police report was created based on your report that occurred on September 24th, right?
On the 24th or the 23rd?
The 24th. Are you aware that a police report was created based on your report on September 24th?
They made 2 reports.
So is the answer yes?
Yes, they made 2 reports for both incidents.
All right. Ms. Clerk, can you please bring up exhibit? It would be 5, this number, -police report. Ms. Edney, is this an accurate representation of the police report that you filed based on the September 23rd incident?
Your Honor, unless it's a certified copy, I'm going to object to him asking her any questions about it.
This is a probable cause hearing, Judge.
This is a probable cause hearing, so we can't hearsay evidence is admissible.
I understand, Your Honor. But if I
it's her police report.
No, Your Honor, it's not my police report.
It's her police report.
Well, she hasn't identified it as such. He just keeps scrolling around.
I can't read it.
Well, ideally he can't have her identified because you just objected to it.
Right. It's not a certified copy.
It doesn't have to.
I'm gonna go ahead and allow the police report. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Edney, I'm showing you we'll just call it exhibit 1 for ease of use. Is this an accurate representation of the police report that you filed on or about September 24th related to the September 23rd incident? I'm scrolling slowly.
I need to read what they wrote because I never asked them for a copy because I just gave my lawyer the dates and the incident number. So I've never actually even seen what they printed up. So I mean, I need to read through.
I moved to admit as a self-authenticating record in a probable cause hearing where hearsay is admissible.
We actually have a copy of it that is submitted, and we pull the police reports in conjunction with what's going on. Let me see here. Okay.
Okay, Miss Edney, you would agree
Some
with
of
me.
these things, they wrote some of these things wrong.
Miss Edney, I gotta ask you a question. Miss Edney, you would agree with me that specifically Dr. Gibbons' name, address, and obviously a redacted cell phone number was provided to law enforcement, correct?
Yes.
You would further agree with me that police officers specifically indicated that they observed a bruise on your right arm, but no other visible injury and no injury to Mr. Wang.
We didn't take our clothes off. I did offer to take my clothes off and he could come inside, and he said no.
Okay.
I said I can take my pants off, and he said not necessary, and he stayed out on.
But Ms. Edney, you never testified that there was any injuries to anything below your waist, right?
That because this was just me giving and I did testify that I was injured by him, and we showed all this at the previous hearing, and all the bruises on my butts, my legs, my calves, all of my body. There's pictures and videos of it, and I also volunteered to the police and then to take my clothes off, and then they said no, not to do it. But I took video evidence, photo evidence, and it's all throughout my body too. And that is, I'm guessing, from when he was on top of me.
Okay, but you'd agree with me that the police officers indicated that there was no visible injury to anything but your right arm, correct? That's what
because I had clothes on. Because I had clothes on.
Oh, okay. Did you have something covering your face?
No.
Okay, so they could have visibly seen your face, and specifically they indicate that they observed no injury to your face, didn't they?
It didn't bruise.
Okay, all right.
It was red.
Again, do you know whether she was wearing any Amica cream?
Sir, if you could just answer the
sorry.
question.
I'm totally sorry. I'm sorry.
Red and swollen the night prior. We iced it, and I took some medicine that night, and my face did not bruise. My arm from the bottle bruised all the way across, about like 4 inches by like 3 inches.
Okay. But that's not.
And then I had all the bruises throughout the rest of my body, all up on my butt, my legs, my bottom half of my body. I offered to take the clothes off, Your Honor, for the police, and he said no, not necessary. And I said you could come into my house, and I'll take the clothes off for you.
All right, but you've never testified to any other injuries up until just right now. Other than the injury to your face? No, I haven't asked the question. Other than the injury to your face and your arm, until just right now in this hearing, you've never testified to any other injuries, right?
That's incorrect. No, that's incorrect.
Okay, all right, I'll move on.
My lawyer asked me to identify all the pictures and identify the injuries.
Your lawyer did not do that in this hearing, Miss Edney. I'll move on.
You just asked in the past if I testified. That's past.
No,
testimony.
I didn't at this hearing, Miss Edney. I said at this hearing. You're not listening to my question, okay?
Because those are minor injuries. The main injuries from him.
Miss Edney. He asked about this particular hearing.
Oh, okay.
And you're also aware in the police report it indicated that Mr. Wang showed no visible injuries, correct?
He had clothes on. All his were beneath his clothes.
What was his face specifically? Miss Edney, let me ask. Edney,
Miss Edney, I'm trying to talk over him. Let him ask the questions.
Please. His face was not covered when the two of you met with police, was it?
His face, no.
His nose was not covered when the two of you met with police, correct?
No, the blood had stopped by then because that was the next day.
Okay, all right. Ms. Edney, you indicated you didn't call the police because you were so emotionally distraught, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You would agree with me that Dr. Gibbons was around you giving medical attention, right?
Yes.
Mr. Wang was around you tending to your needs, right?
Yes.
Was there any other one else? Mr. West was there briefly around you tending to your...
No, I never saw Mr. West tending to my needs. He never tended to me. The only people
he was present, right?
I don't know where Mr. West was at the time.
Okay. All right. But none of these people called the police on that evening, right?
I wouldn't know if they did or not, but they didn't come, so.
All right. You made a couple of allegations that my client has either filmed you or smiled at you. Have you since filed another TPO? Yes or no?
I didn't get the ruling until today.
Have you since filed another TPO? Yes or no?
No, because I'm not able to, because I didn't find out until this.
Thank you, Ms. Edney. That was my question.
I'm explaining why. I haven't found another TPO because I only found out that his was turned down right before this hearing today when I talked to my lawyer, because our lawyer had never received any email correspondence from the court, from the judge. So I didn't know that I needed to file another TPO or that I had the right to appeal because I didn't know the answer. I only found this out right before I came here.
Edney, did you call the police when he filmed you or smiled at you?
No.
Yes, no. I'm sorry, did you answer?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, what was the answer? Did you call the police when he filmed you or smiled at you?
No, when he was taunting me, I did not, because he was still far enough away from my property at that time that he wasn't breaking what I still thought was a temporary order from Judge Kemp for him to stay away from.
All right. So what you're saying is whatever you're testifying to Mr. Byrne did, it wouldn't have even been a violation of the TPO if you had it, right?
Objection, Your Honor. That would call for her to have a legal opinion or conclusion. She's not capable of rendering.
I totally agree, Mr. Spitzman. You can't make that determination.
All right. So it's your testimony that despite the fact that the police investigated this, talked to you on multiple occasions, that they didn't make the right decision, right? Is that your testimony?
No, it's not my testimony because they all told me every time that they couldn't investigate. They apologized to me and they said, look, we can't investigate this because you should have called that night. And they said, if you want this done, you have to go and file something. And then the officer said, look, I can go down there. And if you're really afraid, I'll tell him to leave you alone and I'll talk to him. And I said, yes, please go down there. And I said, well, what do you think is the best thing for my safety? And the officer said, I'll go down there and tell him, that he needs to stay away from you and not come near you. So that is, and I asked the officer, yes, could you please do that? If that's what you think is the best thing in the situation. The officer said, sure, but if you want legal action, you're going to have to go through these steps. And then I followed those steps from that officer. So they never investigated anything. All they did was came and take reports and took down numbers.
Okay. So it's your testimony that they made the right decision by not arresting anyone, right?
Objection, no. Your Honor. Again, that would call for a legal opinion and or conclusion she can't give. And these officers aren't here.
I'm here for, right. We're here for probable cause, Mr. Spitzman. So right. That's, yeah, that's why we're here.
May I go to the bathroom?
No, wait. You have to wait till he actually finished. He hadn't finished question.
Not gonna be. I'll be like 30 more seconds, Miss Edney. If that's, do you need to go like right now, or can you wait a minute and a half at the most?
I can wait a minute and a half. Yeah.
Okay. All right. When you called the police the second time, Rod was at your house, wasn't he?
I don't know if he was there when I called, but he was there when they came because he said, I'll be available if they need to talk to me.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge.
But they didn't talk to him.
Okay. Nothing further, Judge.
Okay. All right, Mr. Brown.
May I go to the bathroom now, Judge? I'm pregnant and I can't hold it anymore.
Yeah, I'm okay. But Miss Law, I want to make sure she doesn't have anything. I don't know what she wants to do. Mr. Law.
I have just a couple of follow-up questions, but I'd really like for my client to be able to just go to the restroom real quick. Edney, what time was it the next day that you met with law enforcement?
I don't remember. It was as soon as the hours were reported, I went there and then we did the whole parking lot thing. I believe they said the hours were around 12. So by the time I finally got someone, probably 1-ish. I don't remember, but as soon as they opened, I went, or the Google hours said they opened today, I went.
So the police report that's been marked as Exhibit 1, that would be, you think, an accurate time frame of when you actually met with the officer?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Mr. Spitzman? Okay. Do Ms. McLaw, do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. No other witnesses? Okay. Mr. Spitzman?
Judge, prior to entertaining my case in chief, here's what I would request the court consider. I would ask your Honor to consider whether there's sufficient evidence to proceed. If Your Honor finds that there's not sufficient evidence to proceed now that they've completed their case in chief, we'll abandon our case in chief, meaning we won't pursue any warrants. But so I'd like to argue that. And if Your Honor, can't make a ruling at this time, we'll put off our case. But I think that there is insufficient evidence, Judge, for this court to find in any reasonable way that there's probable cause for an actual crime to have been committed. As it stands, Judge, PC is defined as reasonably trustworthy information sufficient in itself to warrant a belief by a man of reasonable caution that a crime is being committed. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt, but it is much higher than a coin flip. Judge, what I'd share with Your Honor is you have 2 independent witnesses that they called that are not biased, that they're going to present to you as reliable and credible witnesses. One of those witnesses said it's quite possible my client acted in self-defense, which would bar prosecution. Another one of those witnesses indicated a number of facts that Miss Edney herself have completely contradicted. In fact, Judge, the reason why law enforcement came to the conclusions they came to is because everything is contradictory. Her herself said, Dr. Gibbons was never present. I never spoke to the police. He says he's never present. He's never spoken to the police. And all of a sudden we find out that he was at the house the second time the police show up. Specifically, the police report indicates that they investigated fully, that they noticed no injuries outside of one to Miss Edney's arms. And then Gibbons himself says that she stands up, she calls my client's fiance a bitch, she approaches him at a rapid pace, and that he indicates that he responds directly to that, Judge. There's just not enough evidence here, as Your Honor should hear the evidence that has been presented. And again, our goal is not to put Miss Edney in jail. But I think that the problem that Your Honor is going to face if we proceed past this into our case in chief is that it is going to be a situation where your choice is going to be both or none. And we're suggesting to Your Honor at this point in time that we will abandon our case in chief because we don't believe that they have met their burden. While it is lower than beyond a reasonable doubt, there is so much contradictory evidence across the board. The bottle didn't break. The injuries were inconsistent. The facts as they related and they occurred were inconsistent. It makes no sense whatsoever. And again, the most important piece of this, Judge, is DeKalb County Police investigated this on multiple occasions. They took reports from Mr. Byrne. They took
Your Honor,
reports
I'm
from
going
Ms.
to
Edney.
object to Mr. Spiesman arguing a case about what law enforcement did or didn't do. You
They
haven't
didn't arrest. That's the conclusion.
Your Honor, no, that's not the only conclusion, and you never
That is.
heard from any of those witnesses.
That's not what the police report says.
Needed the officers to come to court to explain their reasoning.
Ms. Laws, I would implore upon you to allow him to finish. Then you can make whatever arguments you want to make. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's how it goes. Okay.
Judge, I understand why we're here, but the reality is law enforcement investigated this. They talked to everyone. The names are in the police report. They indicated what they saw, and they concluded immediately after the allegations occurred, or within 24 hours, that there just wasn't enough evidence. And it wasn't based on the fact that Ms. Edney didn't call the police immediately. It was based on the fact that everything was contradictory. And the reality is, Judge, is that we can sit here for another hour and a half, and we can go through our entire case in chief, and you can imagine what you'll hear, Your Honor. But they did not meet their burden. I'll also note that they rested, Judge, and they did not even establish venue, that this occurred in DeKalb County. That is required as a matter of law to issue a warrant for probable cause, that they establish jurisdiction, which they did not do. There is no judicial finding of that. At no point in time did they indicate an address. At no point did they indicate it occurred in DeKalb County. That is criminal prosecution 101. They didn't do it. So in the alternative, Your Honor, I'd ask that you find that there's not sufficient evidence based on a lack of venue and dismiss this case and allow us all to move along.
Ms. McLaws?
First, Judge, I'll address the venue issue. The very question I asked Dr. Givens is what his address was, where he was, and what the date was on September 23rd, 2023. He gave you his address. His address is located in DeKalb County. So you very clearly have already heard evidence about where the crime was when it occurred, and in fact occurred in DeKalb County. Your Honor, we have proven sufficient evidence, more likely than not, that a crime occurred. What is the crime? A battery. Official Code of Georgia annotated 16.523 states, subsection 1, intentionally makes physical contact of an insulting or provoking nature with the person of another, or 2, intentionally causes physical harm to another. What you heard, Your Honor, is Dr. Givens stated emphatically more than one time, my client never raised her hand at all to Mr. Byrne or to Mrs. Fraser, who was behind him. They assert that that's their defense. That's been their defense all along, that Mr. Byrne was acting in self-defense, but that's not what Dr. Givens said. She never raised her hand, and that's exactly what my client said. Your Honor, the evidence that you've heard is that Mr. Byrne punched my client in the face and then hit her with a bourbon bottle. Doesn't matter if it broke or not. It doesn't matter at all. He hit her hard enough. It left a mark. Dr. Givens had to administer medical treatment. More likely than not, we have met our burden that he committed a crime. And the importance of Mr. West's testimony, Your Honor, is Mr. Byrne is anticipated when he testifies. He's going to tell you, I never hit her. So then you're going to believe, then you have a question. Why then would Mr. Byrne make a statement to Mr. West that I hit her? He was coming up with a reason to explain away why he punched a woman in the face and then hit her in the arm. We most certainly have, just on the bare facts alone, proven out our case. Now, I always find it interesting, Judge, when people say, well, law enforcement didn't arrest, but you didn't hear from them. Why? Why didn't they arrest? Could be, oftentimes they hear he said, she said, because they didn't come out that night. Maybe it was shift change and they didn't feel like it. But Dr. Givens told you he was never interviewed by law enforcement. And my client told you, as far as when she was there, these cops didn't do a thorough investigation. They came out, or they got stopped, rather, by my client in a parking lot, said, all right, what happened to you? And took down a report. And then said, like they often do, we weren't there. We haven't talked to anybody. This is how you go get a warrant. And that's exactly what my client did. And I think it's interesting that if they had law enforcement to support what they're saying, that basically they just didn't even believe my client is the argument, then why aren't they here?
Well, the question is, that's why we're here right now, because ideally one has an opportunity, whether the officers issue a warrant or not, or find probable cause, they have a person has an opportunity to bring this matter before this court. You saw in previous hearings, very similar situations. And so it's my job to make a determination whether or not there is sufficient evidence and sufficient probable cause in this matter to issue a warrant. Right now, I'm going to deny Mr. Spitzman your motion, and we're going to go ahead and move forward.
Okay, we'll call Mr. Byrne, Judge.
Okay. Your Honor, may I have just one moment? I'm sorry, I've got to put my dog outside. He's not behaving, and nobody should have to listen to that. Can I have just one moment if you don't mind?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm so sorry for the interruption.
All right. Mr. Byrne, how do you know the petitioner, Miss Edney?
Neighbor about 10 houses away and former friend.
How would you describe your relationship with Miss Edney, prior to the past year or so?
Non-existent. Oh, well, prior to the past year and a half. No, we were close. We were very close. Me and her husband were very close. Nicole, my fiance, and Miss Edney were very close. We had a nice 4-person friendship.
Okay. Have you had any contact with her over the past year?
Before September 23rd.
Before September 23rd, had you had any contact with her over the year leading up to it?
No.
Any particular reason why?
We're not friends anymore.
Did you ever call her or contact her?
No.
Did you ever go over to her house and ring the doorbell?
No.
As far as you kind of existed, was Miss Edney even part of your existence?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
I didn't lead him to an answer. It's just a yes or no answer. But
That's definition of leading.
no, it's not. That's not a definition of leading. Just like your definition of probable cause was incorrect too. It's not true.
All right, Mrs. Bisman, go ahead.
I'll ask a better question, judges, so we can move it along. All right. When was the last time you had seen Miss Edney prior to September 23rd?
Year and a half ago, we went to Iceland together for about 10 days.
How long? Okay. And who joined you on that trip?
Objection, relevant.
My fiance.
No, I'm going to allow him to answer that, Mr. McLaws. Go ahead.
You said your fiance, and who went with Miss Edney?
My fiance, Nicole, Miss Edney, and Miss Edney's husband, Mr. Wang.
How would you describe your relationship with Mr. Wang?
It was great. We were basically best friends.
Okay. Did you ever work out with him?
Yeah, in his garage.
Why did you laugh like that?
He's a strong guy, and he's the amount of weight he can lift is pretty impressive.
Okay. Does he weigh more than you?
It's hard to say because I'm taller than he is, but he's definitely has more body mass than I do. Body mass in a good way, not in a bad way.
Okay. September 23rd, 2023. You recall that evening?
Yes.
Okay. Were you ever invited over to Dr. Gibbons' house?
Yes.
What were the circumstances of I should say this just to cut through it. Were you aware that Miss Edney would be there?
No.
Would that have deterred you or caused you to go? Would that have impacted your decision?
Highly unlikely we would have went. We most likely would have stayed home.
Okay. And did you bring anything with you to Dr. Gibbons' house?
Yes, a bottle of bourbon.
All right. Was it a plastic or a glass bottle?
Glass.
All right. And why don't you just tell me what happened when you got there?
So Dr. Gibbons is my direct next door neighbor. Our front window overlooks his backside patio where everyone was. Nicole and I, we were invited earlier in the day, or maybe the day before, I'm not sure. Nicole and I walked over there. We bypassed his front door and went around to where the patio was, where his TV was, where the football game was on. As soon as we turned the corner to enter the patio, we saw Miss Edney, Mr. Wang, and Dr. Gibbons sitting on the back patio. And Nicole and I had like a little powwow, like, we don't really want to be associated with them. We don't really have anything to do with them. But we're here, we've been seen. Let's go, let's have a drink, let's be social, let's go home. That was the plan. One drink, go home. Came to the back patio, said hi to Rod, gave him a hug. Rod gave Nicole a hug, said hi to Peter. Peter said hi back, said hi to Brittany. Miss Edney, she didn't say anything to me, and that was fine. I presented Rod the bottle of bourbon that I brought him. Rod's a big bourbon guy. I'm a good collector, so as an appreciation, here, I brought you this bottle, picked it out from the basement. Let's crack it, let's try it. I asked Peter Mr. Wang if he wanted some. He said no. I asked Miss Edney, do you want to try this? Nothing. And I casually said, you don't have to ignore me. And she said something along the lines are, I can do whatever I want. Nicole said to Rod, do you see the way she talks to people? Something along those lines. At that point, and I quote, Your Honor, Miss Edney said, let me just make sure I'm saying this absolutely correctly. Miss Edney said, pointing to my girlfriend, and you bitch, I'll say whatever I want. To that, I responded with, do not call her a bitch. At that point, Miss Edney stood up, approached us, came within about a foot of my face. At this time, Mr. Gibbons was not in the middle. Dr. Gibbons was not in the middle. I have the bottle of bourbon in one hand, and I kind of put my hand out as to say, that's it. We're not getting any closer. You have reached your limit. We're not getting any closer. You're not going to enter mine and Nicole's physical space. At this point, Miss Edney slaps the bottle of bourbon out of my hand and reaches her hand back to hit one of us.
What do you do in response to that?
I pushed her away.
Okay. Did you punch her in the face?
No, Your Honor.
Did you smack her with a bottle?
No.
And then once you push her away, what happened? What does everyone else do?
To the best of my recollection, because I was busy getting tackled by her husband, I want to say that Rod went inside to get his friend, Attorney West, and our other neighbor, Judd, that I'm not sure what his last name is. Her husband was on top of me, and him and I were wrestling around on the ground. He was on top, I was on top, he was on top, I was on top. It was a wrestling match. While her husband had me pinned into the corner, Miss Edney bit me in the head. I was defenseless. I was pinned in the corner by her husband, who was much stronger than I am. And I was bit in the head.
So let me ask you a question about that. Did you capture a photo of the injury you sustained?
I did. I washed my head first. I wish I would have taken a photo before washing my head, but yes, there's a photo of the bite marks on my head.
Did the bite cause you bleed?
Yes.
Did it cause a laceration?
Yes.
And who bit you?
Miss Edney bit me.
All right, Judge. I'm going to move to, I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 2. Whose head is that?
That is my head.
All right. And is that photo an accurate representation of your head?
Yeah, my head that is lacking hair these days.
I hear you. And has this picture been edited, altered, adjusted, deleted, or changed in any way?
No, it is not.
All right, move to admit number 2, Judge.
No objection. No objection.
Okay.
And just minute. Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Can you identify where the injury is on this picture?
Top, where it's the right side of my head, you can see the tooth marks in the moon-shaped pattern, and to the bottom, you can see the abrasions on my head, for where that's probably where I was pinned down by Mr. Wang with my head against the floor.
Okay. When you were pinned down by Mr. Wang, were you able to move?
No.
Were you able to?
I mean, I was able to move. I was able to wiggle, but my hands were tied up.
Were you trying to harm, or were you able to harm Miss Edney in that position?
No, I was defenseless.
Okay. Did you suffer any other injuries?
My arm was very badly bruised. It took about a month before I had full range of motion in it again. I never got it checked out, but there was a pretty significant bruise on my left arm.
All right, I'm showing you what's
been
marked as Exhibit 3. What is that a picture of?
That is my arm. That was taken, the incident was Saturday night. That was taken Monday night. That's when I first noticed the bruise. I got out of the shower and like, wow. And it just got progressively worse over that. Bruises don't happen overnight. Bruises take days before they really show up. And that was several days after.
Sorry, well, is that, that's a photo of your arm? Has the photo been edited,
Yes.
adjusted, deleted, or changed in any way?
No, that's my left arm.
All right, move to admit 3, Your Honor.
No objection.
Very no objection.
All right, and who caused? Are you aware as to what or who caused those injuries to your arm?
It must have been when I was wrestling on the ground with Miss Edney's husband.
Okay. All right. Now eventually, did the scuffle come to an end?
Yes.
And what happened? And I will ask you this: during the scuffle, at any point in time, I'll do it this way. What happened to the whiskey bottle during the scuffle?
I know it didn't break because the next day when I was walking the dog, I saw Mr. Givens and I asked him if he wound up opening it that night, or Dr. Givens, if he wound up opening it that night. He said he did not open it. He still has it. He did not try it.
Okay. And after the scuffle ensued, what did you do?
Nicole and I went home. We took a picture. Well, I washed my head. We took a picture of the bite mark, and then we called the police.
Okay. Did the police respond that evening?
They did.
Okay. And did you give a statement as to what occurred to law enforcement?
I did.
Okay. And was that statement accurate and representative of the injuries and that you sustained in the fight that occurred?
Yes.
Okay. And why did you call the police? Everyone's alleging that you were the aggressor and you were the violent individual. Why did you call the police?
Because we were the ones that were attacked. Miss Edney attacked us. Miss Edney verbally assaulted my fiance. Miss Edney approached us. Miss Edney tried to hit me or my fiance. And then when I was defenseless, pinned on the ground by her husband, Miss Edney bit me in the head. It didn't just bite me to bite me. It didn't bite me because she was afraid. I was pinned down, defenseless. She bit me so hard in the head, I drew blood. That is not okay.
Let me ask you this. Now, you've heard the testimony that you were on top of Miss Edney, holding her down while you were simultaneously choking her husband. Is that an accurate representation of what occurred?
No, it's not. And it's pretty far-fetched to think that I can take on Dr. Givens, who is much larger than I am, our neighbor Judd, who is much, much larger than I am, and Mr. Wang, who may not be as tall as I am, but is much stronger than I am. Unless I was an octopus, it would be pretty difficult to have that many arms going in that many directions all at once.
And if you were choking or holding down Miss Edney, would it be feasible that she could actually bite your head?
No.
Okay. How is it that she could have bitten your head then?
Because I was pinned on the ground by her husband.
Okay.
I was pinned. Like I was in the corner and she was to my right, and she bit me for no reason other than to just bite me.
Did you receive an audio recording of the statement that you gave to law enforcement?
Yes.
And is that through the open records request that you made?
Yes, through their website.
All right. I'm gonna Judge. I'd like to move to minute 4, which is 13-minute audio from the police report that Mr. Byrne made.
Any objection, Mr. McClaws?
I haven't heard it, so I don't know yet, Your Honor.
It's inaudible as far as I'm concerned.
I can't hear it.
Okay. Good. We did provide it to the court. I don't know if the court has the ability to pay what would be Exhibit 2.
Well, the problem is that if I'm hearing about the same situation that you're hearing on how you just published it, I can barely hear it.
Well, I think, Judge, you would have to listen to it, I guess, on your computer. And I can move on, and then we can see if the court continue Exhibit 2. I don't know how else to do it, Judge. I mean, we sent it over to the court earlier today.
What do you mean Exhibit 2? The Exhibit 2 was the.
Well, I know what I labeled it when I said, but we sent a exhibit that is
okay.
police. So the court would have it if she's able to bring it up. So I'll let her look into that if you don't mind, Judge.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Okay. And so when you reported the incident to police, how did you report it? What did you tell them?
We told them that we were assaulted. We told them that we went to Mr. Gibbons' property. And the main reason we called, yeah, sure, the injuries, but we know what Miss Edney is capable of. We know what her resources are. And we needed to be on record saying what happened. Here's our side of the story. Before Miss Edney and all her friends got together with her attorneys, who didn't call the police the night of so they can collaborate their story together.
Your Honor, I'm going to object.
We needed to call the cops.
Judge, I'm going to object to this.
Okay, so Mr. Byrne. Yeah, Mr. Byrne, focus on why you called the police, not why you think they didn't, okay? So just share with me why you called the police.
We were attacked. Me and my fiance were attacked by Miss Edney.
And you identified the home that you were attacked at. Did you identify the home you were attacked at?
Yes.
Did you identify the individual that lived there?
Yes.
And did you tell them his name is Rod Gibbons and this is his address?
Yes.
You gave them all of that information?
I did, yes.
Now, if you were the aggressor and you were the individual that caused this fight, would you have given that information to him?
No. That's why this testimony is so hard, to hear how I'm just being slandered and how I'm getting all this fights in the community and how I'm attacking Miss Edney and how I'm screaming at her, taking videos of her when I'm walking the dog and how I'm stalking her, how it just hurts me to the core because I'm not that person. Everyone wants to hold Dr. Gibbons in this high esteem because he's a medical provider. Your Honor, I'm also a medical provider.
Object to this.
Your Honor, I have a medical license.
Mr. Burns, that's not relevant.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, how did you feel when Miss Edney raised her hand toward you and Miss Fraser?
I was more concerned about my fiance getting hit than me getting hit.
Okay,
she's in nursing school.
Go ahead, sorry.
She's in nursing school. She goes to the hospital. She has clinicals. And the last thing she needed to do was show up to school or clinic with a huge scratch on her face or a black eye or a busted nose. I was more concerned with her safety than my safety.
Is that why you pushed Miss Edney away?
Yes.
To ensure that it didn't get any more violent than it already had?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Sustained.
At any point in time, did you move toward her in the direction of Miss Edney prior to her moving toward you?
No, we were maybe 1 to 2 feet inside Dr. Gibbons' patio. We did not make it any further inside the patio.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Thank you very much. Mr. Byrne, to be clear, it's your sworn testimony you never hit Mrs. Edney.
I pushed Mrs. Edney.
I didn't ask you that. I said you never hit Mrs. Edney.
I have never hit a woman in my life, including Miss Edney. Never. Okay. I will not hit a woman.
No, but you have been arrested for criminal damage.
Objection, Your Honor. Objection. You know what? Just stop, Ms. McCall. You heard the word.
Ms. McCall, that's objection.
Judge, what she's about to try to introduce, just so you're aware, Your Honor, is a previous arrest from 2020 where my client was summarily, the case was dismissed entirely. We went through this in the TPO, Judge, dismissed entirely. And she actually, at that hearing, tried to introduce nothing other than an indictment. And luckily for all of us, I had the part that said no cross on that indictment. So I'd object to this. It's not relevant.
Ms. McClellan, you know better. You can't bring that in. If it's a case that has not been properly resolved, you cannot bring that in.
Your Honor, except for the fact that Mr. Byrne has opened the door.
It's dismissed.
No, it is not, Judge. He just said.
Now she's lying. Now she's lying, Judge.
Your Honor, if I may, Mr.
Now she's
Spiceman,
lying.
stop. Don't call me a liar, Mr. Spiceman. Don't call me a liar, Mr.
Hey, listen, there's no name calling. And
don't do it.
What's going to happen? This is what's going to happen for both parties. You guys are just dangerously close, for us just going to terminate this complete hearing. And, and this is not the spirit of what we are here for as especially as litigants and as attorneys. So I want you guys to keep your decorum when you're in this courtroom. Okay. All right. Now, go ahead, Ms. McCall.
Your Honor, to respond to the objection, Mr. Byrne opened the door when he said, I'm not that kind of person. I've never hit a woman. He has put his character at issue in this case.
Well, Ms. McLaws, my question to you is that was the case dismissed?
The only thing, and this is what happened at the last hearing, I've been unable to determine that it was ever closed.
Right now,
we have the indictment.
Judge, I sent the court a certified copy that showed that it had null pros written over it, and Ms. McCaws saw it, and now she's representing to the court that she doesn't know. That is not truthful, Judge.
Yeah,
it is truthful.
I'm not going to allow it, Ms. McCaws, okay?
All right, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Byrne, you filed a stalking petition and swore under oath to certain statements. Do you
Judge, Your Honor, relevant. A stalking position, it's not relevant to this, Judge.
Your Honor, I have him on cross-examination and his credibility and the statement he just made.
Ms. McLaws, unless you're presenting that out-of-court statement, and do you have that?
Yes, Judge, I do. I'm about to share it.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Mr. Byrne, you filed a stalking petition against Ms. Edney. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
All right. And you swore under oath that the allegations contained in that stalking petition were true and correct to the best of your knowledge. Isn't that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. I want to show you. Right. And this is your verification in the case Jason Byrne versus Brittany Edney, correct?
Yes. Yes.
All right. You indicate in the stalking petition, I pushed Ms. Edney away to protect my fiance from being struck and was rushed by Ms. Edney's husband, correct?
Correct.
Interesting, though, you never make a statement that Mrs. Edney slapped the bourbon bottle. Isn't that correct?
Judge, again, I mean, I would object. This is to impeach his credibility, but this is actually consistent with his statement that he just testified to. He says, I did not hit Miss Edney. I did not threaten Miss Edney.
Your Honor, that's not a legal objection. That's a speaking objection.
Yeah, the objection is relevance, Judge. She's trying to tender something that doesn't impeach his credibility. It's actually consistent with his statement. So how is this impeachable, Judge?
It's absolutely impeachable, Your Honor, because
I'm never going to continue to go down that trail. That's what she wants to do. So go ahead and tell me. Keep talking, Ms. McCall.
Thank you. Mr. Byrne, you never put in this stalking petition that Mrs. Edney hit the bourbon bottle, did you?
I did not.
Are you putting that in for exhibit number 1?
Yes, Your Honor, I am plaintiff's 1.
Okay. No, that's going to be defendant's 1 in this situation, I believe. Well, plaintiff's 1.
Mr. Byrne, when you arrived at Dr. Given's porch, where was Mrs. Fraser located?
By my side.
Immediately to your right or your left?
Immediately to my right.
Okay. And how far away were you from Mrs. Edney on the other side of the porch?
10 feet.
Okay.
Plus or minus.
And you believe Dr. Givens to be truthful, don't you?
I think he's a good man. I think he's a truthful man, yes.
Okay. And so when he testified that my client never raised her hand, he was being truthful, wasn't he?
That's a question for Dr. Givens. I cannot answer what his state of mind is.
Okay. And Dr. Givens didn't testify that he ever observed my client hitting a bourbon bottle in your hand, did he?
He did not mention that, no.
Now, which hand did my client raise, according to you?
She was standing this way, we were standing that way. She raised her right hand to us.
Okay. And she raised it in the air? Did she actually attempt to hit you?
I pushed her away before she had an opportunity to hit me or my fiance.
Okay. And so when Steve West testified that you made a statement immediately following the incident that you hit Mrs. Edney because she raised her hand, that was an accurate statement, wasn't it?
In the previous hearing, he used the word strike. This time he changed it to hit. I think that's relevant too. His words that he used were changing.
Do you have the transcript so the court can actually read what Mr. West's testimony was before? Do you have that, sir?
I'm not an attorney, ma'am, and you know that.
That's what I didn't ask you that. I said, do you have a copy of the transcript so we can all read what Mr. West's statements actually were?
No, and you know I don't have a copy of the transcript.
Okay. So whether or not Mr. West said you made the statement strike or hit, you heard Mr. West's testimony that you actually admitted to striking or hitting my client. Isn't that true? You heard that.
Did I hear him say that? Yes, we all did.
Okay. So you think Mr. West is a liar?
We are not going down this road again, and you're not going to have me call Mr. West a liar. His interpretation of what I said was that. And I'm telling you that that is not what happened. If you're going to try to get me to call him a liar, it's not going to happen. You tried this last time, and it didn't work.
What do you mean by it didn't work?
You questioned me for a good 10 minutes trying to get me to call Dr. Givens a liar. You questioned me for another 10 minutes trying to get me to call Mr. West a liar. And I am not going to call these men liars. That is for your honor to decide.
Right. So if Mr. West's testimony was you made the statement that you hit Mrs. Edney, it's your testimony. So you're telling this court you never made that statement to Mr. West.
If you're asking me if that's what his testimony is, yes, that is his testimony.
No, I'm asking you, did you make the statement to Mr. West? I hit Mrs. Edney because she was raising her hand.
I didn't hit Miss Edney. I did not make that statement.
Okay, so you claim you didn't make that statement. Okay.
I did not hit her, and I did not make that statement.
Okay.
The statement I said was she was coming at us, or she was trying to hit us, so I pushed her out of the way.
Okay.
Now, again, everyone can interpret that differently. This happened 2 months ago.
Now,
and when you replay this in your head over and over and over, sometimes people use different words.
Okay, Mr.
Like
Burns.
Mr. West did in this hearing. He went from strike to hit.
Well, we don't actually have the transcript, so we can actually see what he said before, do we?
But you were there, and you know it as well as I do.
No, sir. We don't have the transcript, so we can actually see what Mr. West testified to.
Okay.
Right. All right. Now, in Mrs. Fraser also filed a stalking or a petition against Mrs. Edney. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Mrs. Fraser had indicated that my client had attempted to hit you and not
Objection,
her.
Your Honor. What
Is that
is
correct?
the relevance to these questions about Ms. Fraser's stalking?
Yeah, Mr. Claus, it's not relevant. Move on, please.
So it's your sworn testimony, because I'm confused how it is that my client was able to bite you on the head. So where were you located on the floor? Exactly.
Ms. McLaws, this entire situation confuses me as well. I was being tackled by her husband,
Okay.
pinned against the ground, as evident by the abrasions on my head.
Now hold on.
Her husband was on top of me. Let me finish the question, please. Tackled by her husband, who was on top of me. Miss Edney was to my right,
Okay.
with her jaw
How far away?
locked onto my head,
How far away?
mouth length, within inches.
All right. And were you on your stomach or on your back?
The bruises on my head show that I was on my back.
Okay, so you were on your back and you were actually on top of Ms. Edney, isn't that correct?
That is absolutely incorrect.
I see. And where was her husband physically located?
On top of me.
Okay. Was his how was he physically located? You said he was on top of you. Well,
Yes.
was he on top of you face to face? Was he on top of you with his back to your face? How was it?
He was on top of me, my chest to his chest, my face to his face, and our arms tangled up in some way where I am defending myself and he is thinking that he's defending his wife. But yes, I was on my back and he was on top of me, face to face.
All right. And where were you located exactly on the porch when all this was happening? Towards the front of the porch or the back of the porch?
We only made it into the porch about 2 feet before
Okay.
before the altercation happened.
Okay, but I asked you where you were physically when you were on the ground.
On the porch in the corner.
Okay. Were you in the corner closer to where Mrs. Edney was, or where?
The corner was where Miss Edney was.
Okay.
Because remember, she came to us, as Dr. Gibbons stated.
Right. And so at that point, Dr. Gibbons was actually in between you and Mrs. Edney, correct?
That is his account of what happened.
No. It's true, isn't it, that Dr. Edney was in between you and Dr. Gibbons was between you and Ms. Edney, right?
That is your client's and your witness's interpretation of the events.
So when you arrived on the porch, Dr. Gibbons would have been to your left, correct?
Correct.
And you said, and Mrs. Edney would also have been to your left, correct?
Incorrect. She was ahead of us.
Facing
Straight
you?
on.
Straight on. Okay. And Dr. Gibbons, you said, it's your testimony, isn't it? He stood up and shook your hand, right?
Yes.
And so when he stood up, he would have been physically between where you were standing and where Ms. Edney was. Isn't that right?
People move. That's not correct. We said hi. gave a hug, and then back to standing.
Okay.
There was no reason for everyone to be up in arms. There was no reason for anyone to be hostile. There's no reason to think anything was going to happen. So we stepped
Mr.
away.
Burns, listen to the question. So you're on the porch. Dr.
Yes.
Givens is to your left. So when he stood up, he was physically between you and Mrs. Edney. Isn't that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. And he actually turned to face you when he was talking to you, didn't he?
Yes.
Okay. And that would have meant his back would have been to Mrs. Edney, right?
I don't think we've established where Mrs. Edney was.
She was sitting
Was
in
he
a
in
chair.
between us?
Okay, Mr.
Was
Burns,
it a straight
listen.
line? No, it wasn't a straight line.
Okay. So when Dr. Givens stood up and he turned to face you, his back would have been to Mrs. Edney, correct?
I can't say.
You can't say.
I can't pinpoint it. No, I can't pinpoint exactly where he was. I can't pinpoint exactly where she was. I wasn't looking at her. When I'm talking to someone, I'm going to look at the person I'm talking to, not. I think that's just a matter of common courtesy.
Right. And so Dr. Givens was facing you, right?
At which point? When we were talking to each other? Yes, he was facing me.
Yes. Okay. And at what point do you, is it your testimony that he moved?
Everybody on the porch moved.
At what point did he move?
During the altercation,
Okay.
Mr. Givens went inside.
Dr. Givens went inside during the altercation?
He went inside. He was not there. He was not in between us. Who
That's
was
the
between
first
us
time you've said that,
was
though,
Mr.
right?
Please let me finish. Thank you. Who
Uh-huh.
was in between us was Mr. Wang, Mrs. Edney's husband. He is the one that tackled me. Not Mr. Givens, Dr. Givens, not Mr. West, not our other neighbor, Judd.
So it's your sworn
Mrs.
testimony
Edney's
today.
husband, Mr. Wang, tackled me. At this point, Dr. Givens went up. He went inside to get the two other gentlemen to break up this wrestling match.
Hold on. It was only after you were on the floor that you contend Dr. Givens got up and went inside, correct?
I don't think that's what I said.
So
I
is it
remember
your
one of the
testimony?
lessons I remember seeing before I was tackled was
Mhm.
Mr. Givens, Dr. Givens going inside to get the other gentleman to break up this fight that was about to ensue.
Isn't that interesting? This is the first time you've testified to that, isn't it?
This is the first time that I've spoken during this entire hearing.
During this hearing, but you testified at the stalking petition. You never said that during that hearing, did you?
Do you have the transcripts?
Oh, yeah. We've ordered them. We'll be happy to continue or ask the court to reserve
The answer is
ruling
no. The answer
so
is
we
no.
can
We're
read
just
it.
arguing. Judge, I'd object.
Do you have them?
Listen, we need to move on. Listen, this is we're getting dangerously close to the time for me to shut this down. So y'all need to go ahead and move on.
Okay. But Mr. Byrne, you never testified that Dr. Givens wasn't present on the porch during the altercation at any point in time at any hearing, have you?
This is the first time that I'm having the ability to speak in this hearing.
I didn't ask you about this hearing. I said that's the first time you've testified under oath that Dr. Givens wasn't present during the altercation. Isn't that correct?
Do you have the transcripts?
No, sir, I'm asking you about what you recall. This is the first time you are testifying that Dr. Givens wasn't present during the entire altercation. Isn't that correct?
Ms. McLaws, as you know,
Your Honor, if you
that
can
was a
instruct the
6.5
witness to
hour
answer the
hearing.
question.
Can I remember everything I said? No, I can't
Mr.
remember
Burns,
everything I
yes
said.
or no? Okay.
It's yes or no.
I can't recall, Your
Mr.
Honor.
Burns,
I don't
yes,
know.
no, or I don't remember. It's your decision.
You
I
can't
don't know,
recall.
Your Honor.
Move on to the next question.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay.
He can't recall.
All right. All right.
Another
Mr.
question, Ms. McLaws?
I'm addressing the court, not
Oh,
you, Mr.
okay,
Spicer.
sorry. I didn't know if you were done. Judge, I got nothing further for Mr. Byrne.
Okay. All right. Is there any more testimony?
I mean, it would be Ms. Fraser, Judge. I mean, again, if you want to hear it, that's fine.
I mean, is her testimony going to be cumulative to what Mr. Barnes testified to?
I mean, she has a private warrant up against Miss Edney.
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to put it up, Judge, but what else can I do?
Well, you got about 20 minutes.
All right, Judge, I'm gonna make it 10. All right, Ms. Fraser, you're sworn. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Fair to say you've always had a healthy and reasonable relationship with Miss Edney?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
You got to be kidding me, Miss McCaws.
Listen, Ms. McCall, go ahead, Mr. Smith, please.
You had a healthy and
Objection
fair,
overruled.
have you had a healthy and amicable relationship with Miss Edney?
For the most part, yes, up until the falling out of our friendship, and why we decided to stop talking to her is because how she verbalizes and she just says really inappropriate things. But for the most part, yes, we traveled and had a healthy relationship leading up to the two events.
Okay. Leading up to September 23rd, had you seen her over the year prior to that?
No,
Okay. Did you and Jason know that Miss Edney would be at Dr. Gibbons' house?
no.
All right. Had you known, would you have gone?
No, I don't think so. It was my first time actually. Rod and his wife continuously have tried to invite us over numerous times, and I felt bad because I am a nursing student. Jason works long shifts.
Objection, Your Honor. This is far outside the scope of the question.
Go ahead and please just direct to the question. I got you, Miss Fraser.
I mean, long story short, I don't think we would have gone over there if we knew Peter and Brittany were there.
All right. When you arrived, can you tell me what happened?
When we arrived, we went to their porch. We heard the TV on, and then proceeded to say hi to Rod. We gave him a hug, and Jason and Rod shook hands. Well, I gave him a hug. And then I stood back and proceeded to stand right next to Jason. And Jason proceeded to talk to Rod about the bottle of bourbon that he brought over just for like a housewarming kind of welcome gift. Jason acknowledged Peter and Brittany, and Peter replied, hey or hi softly, and Brittany continued to ignore Jason. She was on her phone, I think texting or something. And then, Jason decided to ask Rod to open up the bottle of bourbon and have a drink. And then Jason had asked Peter and Brittany if they would like a drink as well. Peter quietly said no. Brittany ignored, and then Jason had made a comment. Like, you don't have to ignore me. You can at least acknowledge the question in so many words. And that's when Brittany began to get hostile and said that she doesn't have to talk to Jason because of the falling out that we had. And then and then I had talked to Rod, and I said, oh, do you see, that's how she talks to us. And that's the whole reason why we're not friends with her, is how she treats us horrible. And so I had never even talked to Brittany or Peter, and I turned over and faced Rod, and I said, this is how she talks to us. And then that's when she proceeded to call me a bitch, and then she headed over my way towards Jason and I. She then began to stand.
When she called you a bitch, was she sitting or standing?
She, I believe, said she called me a bitch and stood up, and then proceeded to walk towards Jason and I.
Okay, and how would you describe the pace that she walked at you? Was it slow, fast?
Fast, given the fact that the whole thing happened within 30 to 40 seconds. So super fast and quick.
Okay. At any point in time, did she cause you to feel reasonable apprehension that she was going to hurt you?
Yeah, she raised her hand. First, she called me a bitch, raced over here where Jason and I were standing. And if she wanted nothing to do with us, why would she even come over to address anything? So yeah, I did feel a little taken back that she was quickly walking towards my way. I began to just stand there. I'm in nursing school. I'm not going to get involved in any drama regardless. So I just honestly stood there next to Jason. And Jason then verbalized to Brittany, don't you dare call my fiance a bitch. And then that's when Brittany proceeded, I can call her whatever I want to call her. And then began to slap the bottle down of when Jason had the bottle up. He had the bottle up. She began to slap it down. Jason said, don't you step in further. And then Brittany began to do so. And then that's when she raised her hand, and that's when Jason had pushed her. And that's when the whole chaos started.
When she raised your hand, what did you immediately think was going to happen?
Well, first I was wondering who she was going to hit. I mean, I'm standing right next to Jason. I did not verbalize anything with her from me entering this whole situation. Jason's the one that verbalized something to Rod. I didn't know who she was going to hit, but I knew she was going to do something because she had headed over quickly after she had verbalized and called me a bitch, which I think is an inappropriate word.
Was it possible from your perspective she was going to hit you?
Yeah.
Was her hand close to or headed in the direction of your body?
Well, she had it up, and that's assault.
Okay.
I mean, did I know it was going to point towards me or Jason? No.
Okay. And did Jason's response of pushing her, from your perspective, did that stop her from striking you or Jason?
No, it did not stop her.
She was still able to do it?
Well, no. I mean, in self-defense, he had pushed her.
Right. Did that stop her from striking you? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Him pushing you.
Yes. Jason stopped the incident from happening because he had pushed her. If he didn't, I couldn't have told you what would have happened.
Okay.
It probably would have hit with us.
At any point in time, did you see Jason hit her or punch her?
No.
Did he hit her with a bourbon bottle?
No.
And after he pushed her, who responded first?
Brittany.
Okay. And then after Brittany responded, did anyone else jump in?
Peter.
Okay, what did Peter do?
Peter began to attack Jason.
Okay. And were you the only person that was kind of standing up, looking over everyone during this incident?
Yes.
Like, what was your vantage point? I mean, like, what could you see or not see?
Everything.
Okay. So how would you describe the I guess the preceding fighting and the wrestling that occurred?
That Brittany and Peter were on each side of Jason, and Jason was actually in the middle. If Brittany was able to actually bite on top of Jason's head, not on the back. If Jason was on top of her, she would have only been able to bit the back of the head. In the photo, it's on top. She was curled over on the side of Jason, and that's how she was able to lockjaw on top of his head and proceed to bite. And if she was out of breath, she would have been able to bite.
Objection, Your Honor. I think she's going far beyond what she's not been qualified as an expert witness. She's not testifying about what she observed. Now she's drawing conclusions she's not qualified to make.
I was the only one.
Nicole, not your fight. Okay. Judge, she testified to what she saw. She based it on personal experience. I think it's late.
I proceeded to see.
Nicole,
Fraser, there's an objection. You have to be quiet, okay?
Yeah, we got to figure this out. So, Judge, she's testifying to what she saw.
All right, but she can testify to what she saw, but she can't draw conclusions.
Fair enough, Ms. Fraser. I need you to testify what you saw. Did you see Mr. Byrne choking Mr. Wang?
No.
Was it feasible based on the position he was in that he could have choked him?
I don't know how that would be possible based on the positions.
Okay. And was he at any point in time trying to injure or choke or hold down Miss Edney?
No, I think he was trying to wing Peter off of him.
Okay. And is that when he was bit?
Yeah, so when Peter was on top of Jason and trying to hold him down, that's when Brittany bit Jason on his head.
You witnessed that? You saw her bite him?
Yes.
Okay.
That image will forever be in my mind.
1 second, Judge. I think I'm done.
Ms. McCall?
Ms. Fraser, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, so you got any questions?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. Ms. Fraser, you're engaged to be married to Jason Byrne, correct?
Yeah, I love him. He's a great person. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here right now.
Do great people go to their neighbor's door and try to break it down?
Objection, Your Honor. This is now she's trying to bring up prior arrest again.
She's opening the door.
She knows better.
Well,
she's opened the door, Your Honor.
No, she hasn't opened the door.
I wanted to focus on this incident, okay?
Yes, Your Honor. You filed a stalking petition against Ms. Edney as well, didn't you?
Correct.
And never one time in your stalking petition do you allege that Mrs. Edney hit the bourbon bottle, did you?
I don't think out of the entire situation, that was like the key evidence of why I filed.
That's not what I asked you, ma'am. You didn't allege in your verified petition.
Yes or no question, Ms. Fraser.
Did you?
No.
No. Dr. Gibbons was on the porch the entire time that the incident happened, wasn't he?
No.
When do you contend that he left the porch?
He left the porch when Peter and Jason began to fight each other, and he went to go inside and tell Judd and the other man, I don't even know his name, that I didn't hear what was said inside, but I know he left the porch to go inside, and that's when Judd and the other man began to break Peter and Jason apart.
You testified at the stalking petition hearing, correct?
Correct.
You never once told the court in that hearing that Dr. Gibbons had left the altercation. Isn't that true?
I think your questions at that time were really not.
It's a yes or no, ma'am. Did you testify at all during that hearing that Dr. Gibbons had left the porch? Yes or no, ma'am?
I'm not sure. I mean, show me the evidence that I did or did not. I'm not sure.
Okay.
That was a 7-hour TPO.
So you can't recall whether or not you told the court in the TPO or the stalking petition that Dr. Gibbons had left the porch. You can't recall that.
I'm pretty sure if I'm saying that he left the porch, then I would have mentioned it.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Two follow-up questions and I'm done, Judge.
Okay.
Ms. Fraser, did Ms. McClaws ever specifically ask you during that TPO hearing where Dr. Gibbons was?
Not at all.
Okay. Number two, do you recall how long that TPO hearing lasted?
Yeah, 7 hours.
Nothing further.
6 or 7.
Wait, I have a follow-up question. Dr. Givens actually testified at that stalking petition that he was present the entire time, just like he did today. You heard that testimony, didn't you?
Yeah, I heard what he had said.
You heard what he said during that stalking petition, his testimony?
No, I'm talking about I heard what he had said today.
Okay.
I didn't get to hear what he had said during the TPO because I was in a different room. I only got called upon when I was supposed to speak.
Right. That's all I have.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, no other questions?
No other witnesses, no other
no
questions.
witnesses, no evidence. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this under advisement, and I will be issuing something in the next week or so.
Your Honor, is it possible while you're taking it under advisement, if we get the transcript of that hearing, that I can submit that as an exhibit?
Judge, I would object. That's entirely inappropriate. The case is closed. She didn't bring it to this hearing. She cannot.
Yeah, I'm not gonna know. I'm sorry, Ms. McLaughlin. No, you can't do that. Okay.
Okay, Your Honor, I thought I'd ask because
I know.
Judge, thanks for your patience. Can we all be excused this late? You know that though, don't you, Judge?
How do you know? How do you know? How do you think I feel?
I know, Judge. I know. I apologize, but I appreciate.
Oh no, you're good. Listen, this is part of what I do. Okay, I want to make sure everybody had an opportunity. But
Your Honor, may I ask one question, please?
Yes.
And I know it's late and I don't want to be a wheel in the cog, but my client does have a right to close. Can we do that by letter brief?
Judge, I would object any letter brief. This is, unbelievable.
Let me just say this. If you want to submit a letter brief, Ms. McLaughlin, you can, but I'm just going to let you know I'm going to be ruling on it very soon.
Yes, sir. I will get that to you tomorrow.
Okay. If that's the case, then let's just put a 5-minute closing on the record and be done with it. I thought that we have to go brief this.
Listen, you know, Mr. Spitzman, you've been practicing law long enough to know that there have been opportunities where people submitted extra briefs after hearings, what have you. So this is not anything different. Okay.
Understood, Judge. Thank you.
Your Honor,
thank you.
May I just ask where I would submit that to? I don't want to take too much time.
Oh no, you can submit it to Ms. Ross. Could you put your email address in there, please?